Hello, everyone, and welcome to Code Breakers Little League. My name is Piercing, and for the first time, I am joined by the Lone Ranger. Lone Ranger, how are we doing today on this fine weekend?
Hey, we're doing great. Really looking forward to seeing some of these matches. As a pretty new caster, it's great to be getting into some of the grassroots side of the finals, and what Codebreakers really brings to the table is really great. So thrilled to be working with you. Excited for it. Ready to see some fun games.
Yeah, it's a nice change of pace, to kind of be down in the more relaxed level, where everything is a lot more laissez-faire, as I like to put it. I mean, we see sledgehammers, we see the M20 Mater, we see all kinds of different weird and unique loadouts. And the best part is it works. It really does come into great effect. And that's what I really appreciate is, stuff like that. You wouldn't see a lot of players getting away with that at the upper echelons, like in the PHL. So it's a nice change of pace, casting down to earth with everyone.
So what I will say on that note is that while you're correct that you don't see near as much of like the off meta weapons in the higher tier of play, it can be really exciting when you see those come out.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it was PHL and also the Heist games, which is something that I obviously worked closely with as the owner. Um, that we saw people popping off with the M26 matter and we do have some Ruby sludge players. But you're really quite right that it is much more not the norm to see them running that. Whereas at the lower tier, you can really get away with running whatever you want, whatever you enjoy, and you can make it viable.
Yeah, if you can aim well enough and play smart enough, you can get away with just about everything. But we're going to be getting into this first matchup. It is going to be a head-to-head, and we're going to be facing 8K Ace versus Team Evolution. That's going to be who will be debuting for our first matchup of tonight.
And what we'll notice here is that we do have one team immediately going for height. Now, this is important. Not only did they get the tap, but they do have the height advantage to where they can just shoot down on Team Orange, which, pardon me, but I'm not seeing the names over the overlay.
Yeah, they have
Um,
kind of backed off quite a bit, though. They've conceded a lot of space, and that stealth melee was big, able to take one off the rip. It's going to be very close here, but it will ultimately come down to Pink getting wiped out. I think kind of conceding that space towards that vault or cash box is really where kind of the struggle point was for Pink. But either way, it was an incredibly close, matchup with good follow-up, especially with that melee stealth kill. That can be really disruptive. So, I mean, good adaptations, but ultimately, Orange was still able to finish the job.
And going back to what you said earlier about seeing a lot more sledgehammer and matter, something else that you'll see a lot more of is something like the sword. The sword for light players at this level is, pretty efficient, pretty
Mhm.
viable. It gives you good movement. It's fast. It does high damage output. It really is like a left click wonder, And you see that somewhat at the higher tier, but not near as much as you might expect to see from a weapon that at a low tier can feel very, very predatory. At a high tier, it's just a little bit harder to deal with.
Well, yeah, because you have a lot more positional and distance discipline to not allow for something like that. I mean, you're basically just hunting for that positional gap, and that kind of leaves you out of the fight for a long period of time. Speaking of which, we're now going to finally see a little bit of pressure start to mount on the little or on Pink here as that goo starts to go down. They do manage to pick up one. That's going to be thanks to Margin Light with that melee once again. But now the full pressure's on. They're on the platform. Take another. That's the heavy down, and Brand is going to go down with it. Now we're going to see that cash out still be in their control.
And what you'll notice here is something like the minigun, which does see usage in both little and the higher leagues of play, is that it just shreds, right? If you can find someone who's good at minigun, it just really is a great tool to just keep the other team at bay. What could they do? He just kept shooting. Like,
Oh, this is nice.
You know, you get low and oh no, there's just still more bullets. Unlike with something where, you know, you might have to wait on a
Wow.
reload or something, you can just sit there and keep shredding like you're seeing right now. Just sitting back, holding them off, getting this cash out.
Yeah, well, especially with that lock bolt that kept them in place, that just enabled the minigun to deal so much damage, and that's really the key to a good minigun player, is they can lean into their teammates for support, because a pressured minigun is effectively a useless one if the pressure mounts high enough. But in this case, it's not going to quite be good enough. They were able to push through, and they do end up snatching that cash out or the vault away from Pink. Actually, I think it was... Yeah, no, they were.
Nope.
It was actually too late, but I mean, still, they got that team wipe, so they can get a good pushback and retaliation mounted up. It just, they had to get that done sooner, unfortunately, but it was still a very good effort, especially when you have something like lock bolt plus minigun on the hop up. That makes for a very tough recovery for an attempted steal.
Correct. And what we're seeing here is that while Pink was able to get that kind of ego child win right there, you know, it's not really helping them at the end of the day, because by the time that they had managed to res their player and make it over here, Orange had already respawned. Orange was back here already, and we just see that minigun hitting right now. We do have a res coming out of Brayden to get a 2v1 going on here, and we'll see if they can stop that res, but it doesn't look like it.
And actually, we're going to see a great position here to force that melee out of that fight, which is kind of crucial to try to, you know, slice this up, especially with your heavy going down, Disnips going low, but not going to be able to keep themselves on the front. That's going to enable Orange to get another tap. Right now, Orange is looking very strong here. They've had some points where they can kind of falter once, you know, Pink gets up and close, up and personal. But right now, they've been keeping that distance when they need to, right? Or at least leveraging it in such a way that we're not seeing too much punishment going through here.
Now, what is unfortunate is that due to the fact that neither team really took the time to tap the box before that fight, by the time the wipe had come out and they tapped the box, Pink is already back. And it looks like we're going to have another fight before we can even get the box plugged.
Right. Well, the thing that's kind of nice here that is in favor of Orange right now is they have a melee sitting right up against that cash box, so no one's going to really be able to attempt to grab that, at least not without a rude awakening. The goal here is going to be to try to find one and kind of gatekeep that cash box away, but losing that medium is kind of a major setback here. Huge damage on the heavy. I was about to say, almost doesn't get that kill, but does manage to finally secure it. But both players down on the ground are out. It's going to be now up to Margin to book it over to the vault, which Margin does get a very strong head start. But thanks to that little attempt to hold Pink back, they're going to have to coin it back.
And now what you saw there earlier, just a second ago, was that, you know, Doji really was putting out some good damage, got low, Vivid drops down, gets some healed back up, but then Doji kind of splits and separates, and it looks like, I don't remember if it was PTV Please Help or Brayden, but you know, got the winch out on him and was able to separate him from his team, and that's really what this game is kind of about. If you can separate the team to where you can get an easy pick and turn it into a 3v2 or a 3v1, that's really where you see the team start to dominate.
Yeah. Well, on the one hand, it is nice for Orange that they have a light where Pink doesn't have any, so that light can pretty much get out and choose any engagements they want to try to start a vault. But the problem is now you're seeing the 2v3s, which so far they're holding up quite well. Doji is very low, but still has that shield available, and there's already one player down, so that effectively puts it to 2v2, except for the revive that just went out thanks to Please Help. But either way, that's kind of where, you know, that challenge point is the fact that you're fighting pretty much a 2v3 in order to try to get back and prevent the vault from getting into Orange's hand. So there's a bit of a mobility struggle, but also kind of, you know, that pressure, you know, trying to keep that. And now we see Doji who's completely alone, gonna have to hop up alone. This is a very splintered situation here with, the composition of Orange, but also how far away they are. Hmm. So there is a
And
possibility we are gonna have to reset the match. Apparently, we do have unlimited coins here. We'll have to see how that is handled. But yeah, typically this would be limited coins, and Orange would have burnt through a pretty good amount. But one thing I do want to kind of mention is notice how Doji went down in that exchange completely isolated there. That's one of the big cons of playing minigun is when you are caught out, it's very hard to be able to stack pressure to get out. You're kind of entirely dependent on the utility that you have available, to escape. And if that doesn't serve you well, especially if you got a light on your tail, you're not really getting out. That's where a minigun is heavily dependent on their support in order to get the maximum impact.
that's good. And so, what we're hearing here from production is that it was in fact set up as a looks like head to head, and that it was supposed to be set up as a ranked match. This limits the amount of coins. It keeps players from switching weapons mid fight. So it is pretty important that we do that just for the integrity of the tournament.
Hmm.
Now, what can we expect to see out of this now that the teams have kind of gotten a more of a feel for each other?
I think what we will see is potentially a drop off of the minigun. Orange has a good idea with how they have been, distance gapping the cash box anytime, Pink wanted to try to intercept it. But that comes at the cost of less support for the minigun. That melee is incredibly important for keeping pressure off that player so they can just let it rip. But when you've got players in your face, you don't really get the effective ability to do that, especially when you got a mesh shield blocking all of your bullets and you've got a medium bursting you down with FAMAS or the Scar or AKM. It causes a lot of problems for that minigun player. It mitigates so much damage. So Orange kind of has to make a choice here. Do they want to continue to, splinter and maybe switch off the minigun so the heavy is more independent of support, or do they want to, play closer together but have that cash box close in hand where Pink could possibly take and run? But even I would say that's kind of the better bet when you think about it, because Pink doesn't have any light players, so they're not going to be able to just run off with it. There will be within arm's reach of another fight.
Correct. And I'm wondering too if we might see a switch up in the roles. I don't expect that. We've got a lot less people who tend to play the flex position of, they're able to play light, they're able to play heavy, anything like that. And so what I'm wondering if we'll see, just kind of like a rerun, run it back kind of deal. They've warmed up, they've seen each other. Um, they're starting to kind of know how the other team plays. Or if we'll, get a real switch up, which, would be unexpected in my opinion, but not impossible. Because as I like to say, the only consistent thing about low tier ranked is that nobody can hit their shots, or else they're hitting every shot because just how it is.
Hmm. Well, the other thing that's kind of interesting is even though Orange has some clear gaps that they could address, with rerunning the lobby, Pink, however, it's a bit more playstyle wise, so I don't think really a role change or a composition change is going to help them. They've been kind of getting, flushed out via timing, whether it's with who has the cash box control, which is typically Orange, and that forces a lot of positional concessions, which is a lot harder to make do with when you don't have a light. But also, too, being too late to intercept the cash out is another big struggle point for them, right? They finally got a take of the platform on that first cash out, but they were out of time. They could not secure it. And when you have moving platforms, especially if you can get it on there, yeah, that makes, going, I think it was double medium or no, double heavy medium. That
Well, heavy
composition,
medium. Yep.
yeah, it becomes a lot more brutal to work with because getting on those platforms, you're navigating a very large open space where you can get flushed out, especially when you got a minigun right in your face. That's a lot of pressure to be dealing with, especially you got Lockbolt that's holding you down. Then you got to suddenly try to hold the position, break that Lockbolt to push forward. I mean, you're losing so much time just getting there before the real fight even begins. So I mean, the timing with how Pink has composed themselves is not doing them favors here. They are gonna have to find some kind of way to really pick it up. Maybe with better jump pad placements. There's a lot of different options for how they can speed it up, but either way, at their pace, Orange is gonna be consistently running laps around them, which we have seen.
Yeah. And I think that somewhat ties into the fact that obviously orange does have a light, which they don't. But as you said, also the way pink is playing. Pink as a double heavy medium team needs to stick together, be healing each other up, which we see some attempt at. But really it's not going as well as they needed to. What we're seeing is that Orange is able to swoop in, get a pick, and then it just evolves into franticness, especially because Orange is doing a really good job in targeting that medium. That medium is running defib, but obviously heavies cannot. And so when they go down, uh, it's just a long res, or else they have to try and fight it out or wait for the coin. And now with the limited coins, which is obviously part of why we had to switch, those are going to be a lot more precious. They're going to really have to fix, you know, the issues around do we sit here for a long res? Do we run and let them coin in to catch up to us? I think that's going to be a really important decision to make, and I think they are going to have to prioritize playing together.
Well, the one thing that I do find particularly interesting, and this actually goes strongly in Pink's favor, is Orange was very coin heavy. Now, that could be with the fact that the mode was incorrect and it was unlimited coins, but if they continue to expend coins like they were, that could be a real opportunity, prevent them from getting a vault or a cash box to a vault. Still going to be tough when you've got a light who is, I mean, absolutely booking it across the map just to find a cash out that is the furthest distance away from Pink. But if they can catch that light, or at the very least, wipe out that 2v3 and force that light to make a choice, either they have to come back, try to res, and give Pink control, or maybe even just straight up take out light, get a squad wipe. There's a lot of control that could be wedged there instead of trying to chase for that cash out. Because if you can get two players and force the light to commit to starting that cash out, sure, the tempo's not in your favor, but that's another set of coins that's gone.
Yeah, and it looks like we are finally back into the round, which is good. Starting off, we've got D's with the goop pad. Doesn't look like he communicated to his team though, because they just ran the rest of the way. This is going to, slow down their pace, and it's kind of exactly what we were talking about. They really need to boost their communication, make sure they're playing together, working together, getting those picks out on the enemy team players, and making sure they don't just get soloed out. We got Margin going through with the sword like crazy, getting some good damage off, circling back. They're really not able to stop him.
No, I mean, Margin's absolutely getting away with it. The distance covered and the navigations and the dashes were brilliantly used. I mean, we're talking very little damage, but also, too, you had Vivid Kavita catching up to also hold that line of sight to punish it in the mid-chase, which is crucial. That's how you get another on top of it. That's how you turn a potential sustained team fight into one that has collapsed, as we've seen with Brayden, the last one alive, that's going to have to now get these revives, or to catch up with Orange, they themselves are going to have to use coins, which they can do. The timer is up, and we will see Please Help use theirs. D-Snips is still down. I'm not sure what they want to do there. It looks like they are going to go for a res instead. Oh, actually, I think they were both reses. But either way, as a result of that, now that cash out has been secured, and then we're going to get right into that stall like we were talking about. There's that lock bolt. And yeah, it's going to pretty much hold them back, and they've got that gateway too. The long game that Orange's play has been so well done. It does look like they finally have made themselves up. That minigun is ripping through for major damage. Every player down to half on Pink. This is a dangerous situation. Doji's going to be slow to capitalize. They also do have a heal to cancel this out. There's the RPG.
Big RPG.
This is big, huge damage. Now that minigun, possibly finish the job, but we're seeing Please Help not making it easy. It does actually catch out Doji in return. Vivid Vita, now the last one, very low, tries to escape, but can't quite get away. That's gonna be an easy retake for Pink.
And what I really noticed there is that while Margin was able to go in there and get Braden and Please Help down very low, just couldn't secure the kill. And both of his team were focused on D's. And they just weren't able to, kind of finish off that damage. So a lot of damage out of him, but no kills. And when you can just get healed right back up, it really just means nothing in the end.
Well, and also too, now with how close they were to the cash out, they've got plenty of time to set up, break those repels, everything that can be thrown right back at Orange. But they were incredibly fast to pick back up, getting a hit before that explosive goes down. Margin's gonna take Braden down to less than half HP. Heals coming in fast. Now they're going to be dropping Force into Steel. That is going to force the hand of Pink to get in close and uncomfortable, which is exactly what Orange is going to want here. But the Vault does get dropped, and Orange will successfully get that Steel. All that setup for naught, as we will see Pink get the wipeout. But again, the timing, it's just not in their favor.
Yeah, and what I'm not sure is that they really just didn't take the time to set up much of anything, right? They were kind of standing around. Other than breaking the zips up, it didn't look like they had much of a plan going into it. They were spread out across the top, and Orange was able to just push in. They also didn't have a good way to get down and defend the cash box or to stall the steal, as you can see by the fact that, they tried to drop in on them, but by the time they dropped, it had already been stolen.
Right, yeah, they had to be a little bit closer, which I know is uncomfortable because you've got Margin who's being an absolute menace with the melee. I understand that, but eventually, that's exactly where the tactics come in. You do have to concede at that point, otherwise the objective is gone. What's worse, dying to a melee or losing the cash box? If you ask me, it's going to be that Vault every single time. Although we do see Margin getting a little bit too gutsy. They're trying to swing onto a tight-knit grip of 3 over on Pink. Going to be forced to back off here. They still do have that roof control, which on this site particularly, it's very tough to navigate. But Margin makes it happen, navigating the mansion, taking out Braden. That's going to be now Please Help and D's Nips were the last one. And with Orange stacked together, they do get that defib. That's what makes it so great. They are now going to have that positional advantage, that distance, in order to pick whichever site they please.
Yeah, and not really sure which cash out they're going for here, as Margin is infamous so far for just kind of running around, leading them on a wild goose chase until they can get that wipe onto Pink that they're wanting, and then plugging, and that really does give them a good head start. Anywhere from a 10-second wipe to even a 30-second wipe or thereabout, will just really boost your ability to hold it. Because in this game, every second counts. I've seen cash outs get stolen at the last second for major tournaments too, at top level plays. And that's just a great thing about this game, dynamism. You never know what's going to come next. Anything can happen.
Wow, and this is really good repositioning here. Pink calling the lights push and the throw of that box is going to make this quite problematic, to try and retrieve. It does look like they did actually get it in, though. But either way, I mean, yeah, Pink is hot on Light's tail. If caught in a bad position, it's going to be very hard to get out as they do rapidly approach for this next team fight, which is going to be coming in death from above. That's going to be Pink's kind of play here. But there's a lot of floors to break through here. The attempted steal is going to be forced back off. The minigun getting a lot of damage in. Very low, but can't quite finish the job. That's where D's Nips comes in to finish it off. But it comes at a huge cost, and it's going to be a wipeout as they get completely boxed in. That's why these buildings are very dangerous without opening it up, especially with a melee minigun. I mean, it's a lot of constant damage dealing pressure.
And I mean, like you said, the minigun, the P90, the sword. I mean, this really is just like everyone that you don't want to play against when you're playing your matches. Without being played effectively, some of these weapons can be, pretty easy to counter. But if you are, if they play positioning right, they're just brutal and very annoying.
Oh yeah, well, and the thing too is the positioning of Orange is what's doing them so good. They're not opening themselves to obvious lines of sights, and they're forcing these close matchups. But this time around, it's looking like it's going to be a lot tighter. Oh, never mind, as Orange is just going to immediately run it down onto Snips and Braden. Clear that one out. And with the respawn timer, it's going to be too late. Orange, they took this one in the bag, cleared this out decisively.
Yeah, and I think what we can draw from this is that we've clearly got some people who have been playing as a team. We've got some people who are, maybe a little bit more fresh to the game. Maybe haven't had as much experience in the competitive space, which admittedly, not many of these teams have. A lot of this is groups of friends who, play the game together, have never played competitively, and really just want to, dip their toes into the water, get some of that enjoyment without, trying to play at the highest tier.
Oh yeah, with all the pressure and yeah, no, I totally get that. I do like how Orange really carried out that building though. They truly did make that a death zone with the utilization to go. It really just comes down to, breaking up lines of sights, forcing, Pink to get close and uncomfortable because a lot of those fights were very uncomfortable. And that's kind of the thing is when you want to use, like melee or minigun or stuff like that, you do have to depend disproportionately to other teams in order to set up fights. Like fight setup is everything. That is what can cost you a fight if you don't really have a way to dole that damage uninterrupted. And Orange has a very strong ability to enable those ideal fights, right? They're winning these battles before it's even set up. Pink isn't they didn't really have, the destruction needed to try to open up the building so they can keep their distance. So I mean, very well deserved win.
Yeah, I agree there. And we've got Margin coming in with 6 kills and only 2 deaths. Um, I mean, you saw it the whole game. He would constantly just be flanking around, swooping in at the last second. I mean, at the end there, I really did think Pink had a chance to steal that. They were pushing in good. They got some great damage off, and then you just saw heals coming out from Vivid and Margin just swooping in, dealing so much damage and taking him out to finish up that wipe there.
They both times there was very close opportunities to try to go for a steal. It's just it's that close quarters pressure, right? It creates so much hesitation in, diving in. Which I mean, can you really blame them? Because as far as mobility for Chase, you only really have a medium to try to do that. And with the kind of kit that they have, you're not very well enabled to do that. Maybe with a dematerializer, sure, you could have went for something like that, but when you're the healer, it kind of becomes a who's gonna initiate and who's gonna be able to, create that timely pressure. And I think that was a big gap for Pink that they struggled to, try to resolve. But either way, there were very winnable moments that was available for them to go for those steals. But those split second hesitations, they can have a huge impact as we saw.
Yeah, and I will say, with the support coming out of D's Nips, it was very much. I mean, he has double the support score of the medium Vivid, and so you see, okay, he was clearly doing quite a bit of heals, right? But was he doing his job, right? I can heal bot someone all day long, but am I healing at the right times? Am I healing in the right situations? When do I need to be putting lead down range?
Right. It's a very delicate balance, and that's why even though medium's kit is very heavily standardized at this point, except for the primary weapon, there's a lot of different options. I mean, every rifle is kind of a viable choice. I mean, you've got repeater, Scar, AKM, FAMAS, P90, uh, the Chimera. I mean, there's a lot of
Chimera,
very
yep.
viable primaries. But as far as secondary utility goes, what we saw from I forget who was the medium, but yeah, it was a very standard kit. Goo grenade, defib, jump pad. I mean, you kind of have to run that. I mean, there's unless you're with a team that you're very close knit with and you have your own custom strategies, medium is probably one of, as far as utility goes, one of the most basic uh classes for, when you're not familiar or you're solo queuing. And for those who are newer to the scene, that is pretty much exactly what you have to run every single time. Goo grenade, defib. and jump pad. The primary, you have choice, but secondaries, no. Like you're only gonna be able to change it up when you have a team that you're more comfortable with, like your own little personal squad.
Yeah, defib is definitely super important, and I mean, it was said for a while that it's a very hard thing to balance. It is pretty uh broken, or was pretty broken. They did a lot to try and kind of nerf it, but it's hard to nerf it to the right amount. Defib is one of those things where it's like you get a player back so fast. It's like, okay, how do we balance that without killing medium, keeping medium viable, without, just having an instant player right back up right there in the middle of the fight. And as someone who has been playing since beta, we saw a change from it used to be you'd hit them with the defib and they were back in to now you get hit by the defib and you kind of see them like reconstruct right there.
Well,
And so you've got a few seconds there of them not being in the fight. You've got a few seconds of inability to use their specializations. And I think that really did help to kind of even things out. So definitely when you're just running it, defib super important. And then goo grenade, you can't go wrong with being able to block off areas of the map. It's good for movement. I'm a personal fan of the jump pad. I know a lot of people who run zip, but just having some kind of movement when you're not playing as a light is just really important and really good for being able to move your heavies and honestly moving as a team. Get height, you know, get a place it at an angle, launch yourself forward, get there faster because every second matters when you're trying to steal that cash out.
well, and when I see this conversation quite a lot, between the jump pad and the zip line. But for me, that's the better question is what do you value more? Do you value repositional efficiency? If you do, you go for zip line. I believe you still get two, and it can go a ridiculous distance, right? It's a little bit map specific, right? Maps that already have a lot of built-in zip lines, you might not get a whole lot of mileage out of it, but for maps with a bunch of inner buildings, it can be huge to be able to immediately get to the roof and be able to jump from one building to another building immediately. It basically allows you to almost act like a light in a sense, with how much distance you can cover with it. Where the jump pad is more of ambush and escape option. That's where it really starts to differ. So it really just comes down to what are you prioritizing? Because they are similar, but they do different jobs better, even though they can all do the same thing. Like zipline, you could use it for escape. Is it the best option between jump pad? No. But you could do that if you so wanted. But that just comes down to, chase dynamics and trying to weave around buildings and corners and just trying to get out however you can. But yeah, I mean, jump pad's always gonna be better because you're getting horizontal distance plus vertical. You're just a way harder shot to hit.
Whereas on something like a zip line, your pathway is traced out for the enemy team, right?
Mhm.
If I'm trying to track someone's movement, they hop on a zip line, it's like, oh, well, thank you. Unless they're doing movement tech on the zip to, jumping off, jumping on, trying to move around, make it less easy to get the shots off. It's still very clear, kind of like the direction you're going, what you're doing. And that's somewhat the case with jump pad. But with the ability to angle the jump pad, also, the ability to use it to launch the cash box or the cash out in a station. That's super big. You're playing with a heavy who's got winch and you want to be able to move that. Just grab that, winch it onto the jump pad, send it flying, get that out of there, move people around. What I thought was interesting is that while we have seen some winch play so far today, we haven't seen it really used on a cash box. And I'm really hoping we get to see that more. And I think we will going into cash out now.
Oh, actually, I do have a big update. We finally have our brackets ready, and yeah, we got a bit of an upset here. W Fear actually won against Little Skill Gap. They won. Like they actually just flat out beat them out. So yeah, we're not gonna see TSG anymore. That's or at least we're gonna see them in the loser bracket. I mean, but as far as the winners bracket, nope, not for now. So I mean, yeah, that was quite unexpected, I would say.
Yeah, and sorry, as we're getting this next game started, I think it's worth talking about. Well, at least mentioning all of the teams that we've got here. So we've got Control Alt Delete. Oh, sorry, got ahead of myself. Control Alt Repeater. We got the Bread Boys. Uh, is that RoboCorp? RoboCorp? I think we got a
Yeah.
typo in there. The Radiated Farks.
Oh,
Uh,
hardcore.
W Fear. TSG. Uh, 8KAs. Slash Rusu. Team Evolution. So those are our 8 teams that we're playing with today, and excited to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, I do think that as far as, AK Ace, I think this one's gonna be a tougher situation to try and, be one of the top 2 teams, because there is a bit of a playstyle rigidity there that we saw. Unless they can get uninterrupted, close and personal play style. Any team who's going to be able to create a wedge, I think, is going to, really put the hurt on them. So I do wonder how they're going to compensate with that. Because, Pink, we didn't see too much, goos or deployable shields or anything like that. That wasn't very heavily in the kit. But if one of these 2 teams or 3 other teams has something like that, we could see some potential challenge in purple making heavy ground.
And right off the bat, we've got Pink coming in with a great wipe. It looks like LH1 out of Mojang right there. And just putting out crazy damage. Good glitch to get rid of that healing orb, get rid of their shield. And I mean, he is just cleaning house right now.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that was incredibly fast to take out W Fear. I mean, off the jump, but that kind of initiative is exactly what's going to get you that tempo advantage. Because remember, whoever is first to get that cash out, right, all they got to win is against their local rival. That's all they've got to do. But whoever cashes out second, well, now you have the problem of possibly getting intercepted. I mean, we're now talking about 10 plus seconds before the other cash out begins. That's a lot of time to allow for a third party to take hold.
And I will say, over on the other side of the map, we did get red plugging with, orange getting wiped there completely. I'm wondering to see, will orange decide to try again for that? Or will they try in third party A as purple did decide to come back here and chow pink?
I think right now we're gonna probably, kind of keep it standard half. The timing isn't that too far off, but I think as we probably get past that half mark, if another wipe happens, we can probably expect a potential third party underway, depending on who goes down where and how, and all those little intricate details that can make such a difference. But right now we've got pink and purple now going for back at it for round 2. Shield up, holding close, trying to chip each other down. But so far, we haven't seen any major breakthrough in damage. Both are still very high in HP, if not outright full. And that's doesn't really create a big opening to, start a major fight. Block off that little prone hold. They do get the cash out to drop. This is big for a steal, as right now, Pink has to run through a funnel in order to protect. So they could comfortably go for the steal here. But now here comes the chaos. The wraparound begins, and you already have one trying to stop it, and they do succeed. Pink still holds that cash out. Now the damage is really starting to take hold as CBWaz and Twigs are both very low. They do get finished off, and with what the time is remaining, it doesn't look like Pink is going to have this secured unless we see purple really gun it down in the last second.
And at the other side of the map, we did see orange, mid-steal there before they got interrupted by red. This is a big moment right here where, we're having some teams wipe. I would say that the first cash box, unfortunately, can sometimes feel kind of unimportant. While I will say that, all the cash definitely does matter, with some of these later cash boxes having, 18,000 cash in them, 8,000, while it does get you nicely on your way, and what we'll see is apparently a lot of kills out of these teams sitting at 15,000 and 14,500 respectively. While they're well on their way, it's not impossible to have a turnaround, at this next cash out at the last ones. And we see good pace out of red getting there. Margin with that sword, obviously. I'm excited to see that as we watch them, get back into this.
Well, the thing that I think is really important is the way that these, cash out brawls concluded. We saw multiple squad wipes for the team that did not secure the cash out. That's both for purple and orange. And that, along with, the squad wipe bonus, the penalty, both of those combined create a factor of now you're dealing with, even outside of the cash out, a huge discrepancy. So even if pink or purple and orange were to take it without getting some clapbacks and wipes in return and getting a good amount of kills, they're still going to be trailing behind by a decent margin. Those kills and wipes are going to make an impact for when we get down to those final moments, right? Because that's the last thing you want, is even with a cash out, you're still behind, because then you got to start kill chasing and get bolder, and that just makes securing the cash out all the more volatile.
And what we will see here is that we've got, a jump pad underneath the cash box. That way, if it gets dropped, hopefully, it bounces it for a little while. It does look like red waited for, to get the light back up. I do believe that was a coin and not a res there. A bit of stalling going on. They're waiting. What I will notice out of them that, purple maybe didn't think to do last time is purple kind of went in gung-ho there. They had a moment where it looked like they were going to steal that last one, but it was pretty clear that they were going to lose the fight because of that. And while that can work as a last-second steal method to, steal a cash out and then, you wipe, but, you've got it. There are only a few seconds left. You're not going to be able to take it back. Coming through and doing that halfway through is just really not going to work out the best for you.
Oh, that's gotta hurt. Yeah. There was a good opportunity for purple here. They had a lot of damage onto red there, but they gave red too much time to recover, to heal up. And then from there, especially with margin, we've seen what March can do with melee, able to catch all of them off guard in an insanely close space, right? That's where, when you see an opportunity like that, when you got two players who are very low, that's the time to initiate that fight. But we saw too much waiting, and that is going to cost them. As, yeah, now we're going to see red basically guaranteed that cash out, and they have an even bigger lead. They are pretty safe as far as their first and second place position is concerned right now.
It does look like Margin might be glitching out here. Hopefully he gets that back under control. But, taking a look at the scoreboard, they're pretty comfortably in first place. It did even out a lot between second and third. So I think that's where, like you were saying earlier, it's coming down to a game of kills, right? A kill or two can put one team up ahead. Getting a tap could be huge, right? You get some cash for that.
Well, the other thing...
And this really does... Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, what makes this tighter is, considering that we saw, well, we didn't get to see it, but Pink was able to secure, multiple squad wipes, and to get their cash out. Now, second and third place, it's going to be a lot closer, right? That's where you're going to have an all-out fight between orange and pink. The race to get a cash out here is going to be crucial, but it's a new fight now, with red going to be fighting pink now in order to try and get some kind of control over that cash box. And they are going to be close enough to be able to put on real pressure. They're not going to be able to get away with this. They do have Mojang, but he's very low, so going for a box run is going to be incredibly risky here. They will have to fight this out. As far as health and positioning is concerned, we're seeing that displacement, but also a third party coming in too from purple, trying to stir a little bit of trouble here. It's also going to make this a lot more tense. They do get the cash out finally started, but that third party is really going to complicate it. Again, as we've discussed, whoever usually puts that cash box first is going to be the one who keeps it, unless a successful steal. You don't really see an exchange of hands very often when it comes to this box in a third-party situation. Right now, everyone, for the most part, except for CB Waz, is still up.
Yeah, and what we've seen here is that we've got a lot of third partying going on, and it's interesting to me that they would think to try even to steal with that going on, because you've got two teams watching the cash box, both wanting in on the action, and you're just sitting there pretty stagnant. Pink does have height here, which is going to be big, right? Red is going to try and steal, but without having any way to kind of protect themselves, and with margin going down there, heals coming out, they're full health. The other team's down to two players, one player, and I think that's really it for red right now. We do have orange here, we do have purple here, so this cash out is by no means safe, but taking this as a three team, it's a lot more unpredictable.
Well, now even Orange is starting to join the fray as well. The whole lobbies here as it's the last cash out that is available. So everyone wants a piece of the pie here. Especially for Red, this is particularly tense. They have to put the pressure on because they are barely going to lose this out to Orange if Pink takes this. So there is a bit of upset opportunity here, especially now that we see, Purple wiped. They're out. Their points were already too low anyway, but now this is just even more tense. But the gas goes out, and yeah, no one's going to be able to steal anymore. Time is out. That's at 7 seconds that has been passed, and now the position stands stable, especially with Red getting wiped. That just drops their points too low. Even getting kills and wipes now doesn't count enough.
Yeah, and what's interesting there is that they did really try to push for a steal instead of going for that kill race. They were just, a few thousand off, not even. They were just like a couple thousand off. And
Mhm.
so really just sitting back and milking the fighting that was going on. The whole lobby was there, right? Sit on the external, look in, get picks, get your cash up and beat them out by, four or 500 cash.
Well, and Red could have stolen that from Orange. That was absolutely possible. But the thing was there too. You had to keep yourself on a swivel. When you wipe yourself out, that effectively just kind of kills any chance of saving yourself there. I mean, look at the points, 29,000, right? That's that 25% wipeout penalty. There was room in order to overtake Boundless just on points alone. But with that wipe, that pretty much just ended it, right? You kind of have to go kill hungry there. So I mean, it was very close up until that wipeout, and that's where really the position or solidified. Pink's comeback though was incredibly strong. It was rough on that first cash out where they got wiped, but then they were able to really, take a hold in the second half of the round. They had a very strong showing. I mean, the stats don't lie. You scared of what? Going at 5-1 and Mojang 6-3. These are very strong combat ratios.
And the medium, I mean, honestly, look at that. Like 2,800, 2,700, 2,600. Really good across the board, scores in combat support and objective. Whereas a lot of times you'll see people going heavier in, a lot of different areas. Medium should be very well rounded. And so seeing that out of the medium, you can see that he was playing really good support, still dishing out damage, right? So earlier we saw someone with crazy support score, zero damage, and they lost. You
Mhm.
can see that, 7 assists, it looks like every kill that his teammate got, he had in on that action. He got heals in there, you know, moving the cash box.
Well, on the other side of the coin too, when you look at, I forgot the name, but from Red, their medium healed for 7,000 points of support. I mean, that's especially with still being able to get 2,500 in combat damage. That's insane. I mean, you're basically healing from start to finish every single squad fight. It doesn't matter. Like you're near constantly healing. It's still able to get a lot of shots off it in. That commands a significant amount of positional discipline as well as utility management to be able to pull out that level of support while still sustaining damage. That is a feat in of itself.
Yeah, I agree there. And what it was nice to see is that, you know, from our first match where we had, a decent amount of chaos, teams not really playing together, kind of more spaced out. A lot of the teams did do a much better job, even the teams that lost, of playing with each other, playing side by side, playing their roles, making sure they were doing their job, right? And that's a really big important fact of this game, right? You can have someone who goes insane on kills, right? You can have someone, we had them drop what I think it was 7 kills, and they got in third. with the sword. And, still that's just not enough. You can go very kill heavy, but if you can't get the steals, if you can't get heals on your teammates, if you're losing the cash box, if you can't stall, I mean, it's all important. You need someone to do
Mhm.
everything. And if you're not playing with your team, you're just bound to lose.
Well, the other thing too, speaking of combat, is you can get all the squad wipes on Earth, but if you get wiped yourself, your squad, or you lose that cash out, I mean, all of those kills basically goes for nothing, like you were saying. And don't get me wrong, there was a ridiculous amount of squad wipes there. One thing I do find particularly interesting is we didn't see a lot of squad hunting. That was something with how close it was across the three teams. It was orange, red, and pink. I was really anticipating there to be a lot of, squad
A
wiping,
kill
right? Like
race. Yeah.
deliberate, right? Well, not just a kill race to get more points, but like deliberately hunting down teams with stragglers, finding anyone,
To wipe.
squad that has one player left, isolate and kill them, so that way they're wiped, their points drop by 25%, they're out of the race basically without a steal. I guess we did kind of see that with Red going out at the very end, but I'm gonna be honest, I think that was more incidental rather than intentional.
Correct. It looked like Red their medium got desperate, jumped into not only gas, but right in front of a heavy gun. Uh, and that's just gonna get you wiped. You're gonna lose a lot of points. I
Mhm,
obviously you saw that Pink was strong there. And so it didn't look like they were gonna wipe. They had all three players up. So really
mhm.
waiting on that, it wouldn't have been worth it. I think going and trying to get any kills that you can still could have brought you up into second. Wouldn't have been enough to knock Pink out, but it would have brought you up in the second. Whereas running in there as a solo, right as the game is ending, you should be aware of your teammates. You should know that they're dead. You should keep
Mhm.
track of that kind of thing. And if you're just throwing yourself out there, wiping 25%, you bring yourself from within 1,000 or 2,000 of in second place to drastically far behind by about 10,000.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to talk about real quick, just kind of lay out the stakes of what we saw. What was so interesting, when you have three players, or I guess three squads, who are all very close in points like that, you have so many different avenues to play with to take that edge. You can, one, take the cash out, two, wipe one of the top three teams out so that way they can't get enough points or they're forced to get a steal. And now you have a target of who to gatekeep, right? Who, whenever they come back, who to keep away from the cash out, As long as you get that wipe, then you can just keep them away, prevent them from, coming back and overtaking you, or getting squad wipes for points, maybe just go after purple. They were having a tough time. They were having a tough time, try to spot them and hunt them down because they were there trying to go for that steal, get them so you can get that wipe bonus. There's a lot of different options for how you could, edge it out. Because I mean, that with how tight it
It was
was, we're not
close.
talking about
Yeah,
thousands of dollars. We're talking like 500, 1,000, right? It was very tight margins. Like those little
correct.
things that typically wouldn't matter for points, suddenly they can decide whether or not you make it to second place or you're going into the loser bracket. It actually did matter, but everyone was very keen on one thing, which was stealing that cash out. But would that have worked? Yes. But was it necessary? No. There were other options available as well. Like strategically, there were a lot of choices these squads could have made here.
And I think definitely better choices too, like no question about it of, oh, this is an option. No, I think this is the option. And speaking of going into the losers bracket, just taking a look over here at our bracket, we had Control Repeater and Roro Corp moving into the number 1 and number 2 slot for cash out final, and W Fear and AKA Srusu dropping into the losers bracket along with Team Evolution and TSG. I know that we had a bit of an upset earlier with TSG, and so seeing them moving up in the losers bracket for a chance to get back into that cash out final is big for them.
Yeah. So now we're gonna finally see real soon once we get this lobby ready. Who's gonna continue? We're gonna see our first set of buys, right? Who's gonna go home? for this Little Leagues. This is going to be the first chance to witness that happen. We'll see who actually, comes out on top. Now, Lone Ranger, my question for you is of the teams that we know are going to be in this loser bracket final, who do you have the most hope for and, getting out of this loser bracket? For me, I see W Fear as probably having the highest chance. Like they were very close to, taking it. They just had to keep their numbers up, try to find a wipe, and the macro or decision making just wasn't quite right there, at the last second. But I really do think they could pull this off. That's who I'm thinking will make top two. Do you have any predictions?
Yeah, I mean, looking at this right now, I think that I would have to agree with that, right? It was a silly mistake on their part. They could have easily made it in there. It was very close. And also we did see, Pink playing kind of sloppily at the beginning of that game and still making it back. So I do think W Fear could come in. And, I really would love to see TSG come back, you know. Uh I know it was a bit of an upset. Not sure how they're playing today since we haven't really gotten to see any of their matches. Um, I'm actually, however, going to have to give it to Team Evolution as the team that I think will move on along with W Fear.
You think Team Evolution? I will say my biggest thing is their timing, right? How they deal with closing gaps and other things like that. We didn't see the loser bracket round 1, but if they were able to, improve their mobility, close those gaps, I think that they absolutely could make a very solid running. But if they're getting spaced out again, like we saw before, I really don't know. It's really hard to say. But yeah, they have to really step up the tempo, as that was kind of
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
biggest gap that we saw. But I mean,
and
other than that, they absolutely were at multiple times able to beat the brakes off of AK Ace, when they're in their fights. They did it multiple times. Even, when the cash out was happening. I mean, it came too late. Again, comes with tempo, but they were able to, stomp them out. So I do think that there is potential, but I think the first minute or two will really reveal whether or not Team Evolution has potential to save themselves here. I'm not too sure. I just got to see.
yeah, and my reasoning behind that is that, they've had time to warm up now, right? It was close at times in that initial match, right? We saw it where they would have great damage going out and then they would just kind of lose it at the last minute. We see that, 8K on the other side is really struggling in these cash out situations compared to the 1v1s. They're good at focusing one team. They were seeming to have a bit of trouble, especially on that more open map, I think got
Mhm.
them as well.
Yeah, no, it really did feel like a totally different team for a good minute, which is kind of weird because even though you don't really have a lot of, buildings to weave around on the map we just played, but it's still pretty open as far as, like, traversal goes, so it was semi-familiar territory, so it does kinda take me aback that, they had the difficulties that they did, you know? I was really expecting to take, at least 1 cash out, but no, they didn't get 1, so that's where for me, I start to wonder whether map knowledge is a choke point for them.
Mm.
So as far as predictions go, I do not see 8K Ace, pushing through. And until we get into it, I have just from what we know, I have doubts on Team Evolution making it too. My prediction is W Fear is going to take first, and the little skill gap will take second. That's my prediction.
And that's again what I'd love to see. Now, as we are on the topic of maps and waiting to see what Team Evolution does, we are waiting for them to join the lobby. And so as a fun thing to do with you as we're waiting in the last little bit, I would like to know what are your least and most favorite finals maps?
Oh, sorry, I kind of zoned out. Least favorite
You're good.
map?
And
Uh,
most favorite.
Oh, most favorite. Ooh, tough map or a tough choice. I would say probably. Not Nozomi. No, that's the one where it's split down the middle. I actually hate that
Correct.
map with a passion.
Is
It's
that your least
funny enough.
favorite?
Yeah, no, it is. Sis Horizon, the classic, right? I
Okay.
I love Sis Horizon. Something about, the spacing and just the way that it's laid out. I love the spacing, right? You don't have a bunch of tight, awkward corners, right? I mean, there are opportunities for that, but something about its spacious layout, its extremely high destructibility, its clean navigation in between buildings. You got your roadways and your interconnect or not interconnected, but your separate buildings, and it feels like it breathes. And I think that's what makes it such an iconic map is it's not too open to where you're getting called out to BS like the sniper from a completely different cash out or so tight that you got to worry about every single corner. There's a freaking melee, waiting to cheese you. You don't have to worry about really any of
Yeah.
that. I mean, those playstyles are still absolutely viable, but you have to work more for them. You don't get those opportunities as gimmies. And I think that makes it also very beginner friendly too, because those are two playstyles that are very hard to fight against if you're new. I mean, shoot, I'm still relatively new myself, and I'm constantly getting caught by snipers and melees. If you're a melee player, I love you, but I hate you.
Hmm. Yeah, and what I really liked about it too is that it's very easy to learn. But we're now into the next match, so enough of that. We do have it looks like pink and orange heading into an early confrontation. Orange getting the tap. We got a big jump up here to get some good positioning
Huge
out of
ambush.
pink, and you know I see he's got that RPG. They're all standing below him. I'm surprised he didn't use it. They were pretty clustered together, and I think that could have been, a very big, good play for them.
No, absolutely. There was a lot of potential there to possibly get the jump on them, especially with how much damage they were able to put out onto Orange. I really did see an opening to, try to go for a dive here, but it doesn't seem like Little Skill Gap wanted to go for that. Now they do have that vault or cash box that has been popped open. They do get the revive, but you see Little Skill Gap there packing on that pressure, going in, able to take another. That's Please Help down. They do finish off these nips. There's that wipe. They got him boxed and cornered and were able to capitalize and punish to great effect.
See, and after seeing that fight, really seeing where TSG is playing today, uh, at this point, I can understand why it was an upset earlier, and I can have hope that they'll be back in, to continue. Now, that was an awkward fight for Orange, admittedly. They were kind of started off on the wrong foot. I'll be interested to see if they can kind of bring this back.
Yeah, and I do see a bit of a timing gap as well. It's not too big, but there could be a last minute wipe if, or a third party if the wipe, on the other side goes in really quick. But we see Orange climbed up, but that's going to be a huge dive from below. That's going to be taking the lone wolf, but does get flushed out ultimately. Does manage to get big damage out, and we are going to see that pressure take place. But unfortunately for, yeah, no, so far, I mean, it's going to be Orange who will go down. That RPG damage really did set them up to collapse there. That even when the heavy went down, Lone Wolf, that one hit catching all three of them close proximity, massive damage. That was really, the game winner, the huge setup. But looking at the other side of the coin, we are going to see, or other side of cash out, we'll see that fast wipe. That with the time that we are seeing, it's about a quart or 3/4 down. There's not going to be enough time, I think, to try to secure a steal, especially when you got, 8K, who, remember, these guys love to stall. I would argue, for a third party, but it looks like instead Orange is going to try their hand here. So we might just see the two teams, flip or what team they fight.
Yeah, and I think that's a good decision, honestly, out of Team Evolution, because they were clearly not really getting much of anywhere with the other one. Now, what I might would have done differently is just hold off, just wait. There wasn't much time there to steal. You don't have a great way to move in fast. You're not playing with a light that can, gateway you in. And so I probably would have waited, try and catch them between, getting over to 3, maybe tap it even before they can get over there. Choose where you're fighting from. You ran in on a team that had set up. and had height. Now, they are a bit more spread out now, and that is giving Team Evolution, an opportunity to kind of solo off one of them.
Oh, this could be big.
Big RPG, huge damage out of
Wow.
him. But D-Snips looking like he's gonna get away here.
Oh, if he jumped down to second floor, he actually would have had a solid opportunity to secure the kill. But now we see the actually flip. Doji is completely isolated. Does manage to get the burst onto Please Help, but we'll see D-Snips go down as well. That's going to be thanks to Marge coming in from the sidelines. That's a huge support. They saw an isolated player, but instead, Team Evolution faced death near white instead, with Brayden down to very low HP. Last one alive, does have that vertical, is going to end up dropping and losing it, taking a huge chunk of damage, and now going to be very low. There's a golden opportunity to wipe it. We will see Red take it. That is going to be another wipeout for Orange. And as on the
other side of the map, we do have Pink and Red fighting it out. It looks like there was an attempt to stall from Margin, but just really not getting the hits he needed here. And some really good damage coming out of that minigun, though. It does look like they are going to be able to get him down, though. That light is back up and, very dangerous, as we've seen in these tight areas.
Wow,
He can
great
flank
C4.
around from multiple positions, but it does look like a full reset 3v3 here going out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're gonna see the bloodbath in full swing here, and it's gonna be AKAs who is worse for wear. Margin and Vivid Kavita both down. They do have Doji still alive, but with a minigun, it's gonna be really hard to take any given fight, right? That's where you have a high risk of, kind of getting isolated there. With the cash out, that'll be halfway down. They are starting to kind of, run out of time to recover and go again. It's gonna be very close. Time-wise, if they want to try to execute and retake this.
Now, what we do see out of them, full reset, full reposition, possibly heading to the other side of the map, leaving Pink here to kind of claim their prize. Now, we do have Orange respawning, and it does look like they're going to try and push in here.
Well, if they want to do that, they better kind of, really hurry it up. What makes this tougher, too, is we see that Pink has a very nice vertical position here. And with the way they're angled, they're going to have a line of sight onto them immediately to go for that steal. And that winch doesn't quite hit. Gonna still attempt to steal anyway, but that shield's gonna get broken immediately. That's why that vertical is so valuable. You have one heavy who drops down, the rest still above. The RPG unfortunately misses to try the force and drop them down. Now the damage is ramping up. We'll see Please Help go down, and it's gonna be D-Snips all alone to try to get out, and unfortunately will not escape. Another white. Orange is not looking too hot right now. But as far as Pink goes, they're on a freaking tear. It doesn't matter which team comes after the little skill gap. They're going to take it.
And what I noticed there was that we had some, pretty unfortunate moments for that heavy. We had a bad winch. We had an RPG just fly out the window. But,
Poor guy.
Live and let live. You gotta move on. We do have Red going for a steal attempt. Good stall in place by Purple, but they will push pretty heavily, which I think is an interesting choice. They're pretty close together. They're prime position to get, really smacked by that sword there. Sword does go down, but all the players on Purple are not in great, health. There is still stall potential here. We will see if they try to do that steal, but it drops. Good kill out of Purple, and it does look like they have a second player back up.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Purple, or for Red, 8K Ace, they did have a good setup, right? I like the idea, right? You have the funnel on the stairs, big setup thanks to building destruction, force them into that one boxed in position, but I do think that they really kind of didn't take the opportunity to, really take that fire for effect, right? We saw a lot of damage mitigated from Purple, and that's what was able to allow them to survive that dive. But also, too, when you had such little time, that gives you optionality to, to splinter the focus, cut off the objective like we saw with that fire. There's a lot you can do there. But either way, AKAs is back and swinging, and yeah, they're wanting to do their little classic stalls that we have seen and loved from previous times that we've seen them play, this is what they do best. And yeah, brother, they're gonna take that light vault or a box and run with it. This is classic plays from them.
We did on the other side of the map see orange, doing a lot of damage over there to pink, getting 2 kills. But we don't see a plug out of them yet. Whereas here on the other side of the map, there is a plug that just went in, which does mean we will be going into overtime. This is a big opportunity for orange. As with a couple kills, they could easily, oh, I take that back. They could make it into third. They could make it into second too, because you see red there, 21, 150. If they lose this cash out, that and a couple kills will bring them nicely into second place.
Yep.
And so even being behind this whole game, if they can get kills and a steal, they'll be set.
Yep, and Orange is making the right decision here. Even though they're struggling, we lose one, right into that minigun. This is the right choice, right? Because they can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. If they steal, they deny red that cash out, which means the points will be just low enough for Orange to come back and take second place, beating out red and purple here. But they have to take this cash box, and they gotta take it away from red. And right now, the time is running low. That goo grenade is huge to cut them off. They just need to drop it. But here's where things get a little bit tough. Now that purple's down, it's gonna be one less team. They have to get the steal. Right now, it looks like they do actually successfully take it, but no! Red manages to get
Not quite
enough kills in order to keep themselves up, and that came from the wipe onto purple. Ouch. I mean, really good effort to try to save it, but it just barely wasn't enough.
Yeah, very unfortunate. And what we saw there at the very end, interestingly enough, was the other team sitting there, letting them steal, trying to, get them up into the next round. Maybe they thought, this team is worse, grief them into the next round, have our improve our overall chances of winning. And unfortunately, that just didn't work out from them. Whether that was, not killing the person stealing all the way to, standing in front, trying to let them get one last kill there at the end. Did look like some more kills were put in by red at the end there just to keep them out. Unfortunately.
Well, and the other thing I want to, point out too, we kind of talk about, objective play and how kills aren't going to be everything, right? I want you to take a look at margin here because this is a very interesting stat line. Really does drive that point home that kills don't mean everything because that was exactly their downfall when we saw them in the winter bracket final. And it's exactly the same topic of what saved them this time around margin 2 and 7, right? On the surface, right? That's not really good performance, right? But what I want you guys to focus on, look at that objective 4,700, whether it's defending the cash out box or stealing. Margin really was that enabler for their squad to keep them up money wise. And that is honestly more important to kills as it goes to show, right? Even when you're deeply negative, if you have that objective play and it goes for effect, like keeping that cash box or, defending it, right? It really does have an outsized effect over just going for wipeouts. And that is what allowed them to narrowly advance.
Correct. Yeah, I will say it was a full 2 kills needed, not just one, to pass them up barely, as a kill does give you 500, which would take them up to 635, which would have been, 15 short. Can you imagine coming in 15 short of progressing to the next round? Yeah, shocking out of margin as, last round we saw that number flip 7-2, not 2-7. Uh, but yet he still did good. That objective score 4700, great defense, apparently stole as well. And this is an important note to people who are newer to the game, like our players today, like Piercing, my lovely caster over here. uh Kills aren't everything. There was a great video put out recently by someone who did a challenge who actually made it all the way to Emerald without getting a single kill. Playing objective, consistently winning, without getting a
Wow.
single kill. And that's just from the fact of purely knowing how to play objective well. Healing, stalling, all that kind of thing is super important to the game and really should be your focus. Team play and
Oh yeah.
making sure your team can do their jobs well is more important than trying to, go for a bunch of kills, right?
I gotta see that video myself. I mean, I could probably take a few pointers, but no, absolutely. It just really does go to show how important those objectives are. But it does look like we are getting that lobby ready, but we do have, all the teams set. We're gonna be playing next. It's gonna be Roro Core, Control Alt Repeater, the winners from the winner bracket final. And then yeah, this little skill gap and 8K Ace. I was kind of concerned about, AK Ace being able to bring it out, but that I my predictions were kind of completely off. So yeah, they really were able to hold themselves good together, and they were a lot more convincing here. Though certainly it was within close margins again. I mean, these have been incredibly close matches. At least, the finals, right? The winner bracket final, the loser bracket final, those have been insanely tight. But the actual, head to heads, those have been more decisive. I wish we could have been
One-sided.
able to see the other groups for that. But as far as the ones that we got to see thus far, they have been, it's been quite decisive. I mean, like, 2-0.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that maybe does um show a little bit about, the vast variety of how this game can be played, right? You do see a very strong, I'll say it this way. I personally am of the opinion that kills matter a lot more in a final round than in a ranked cash out. Simply because not a ton happens when the teams are fighting, uh, unless the cash out's plugged. So a lot of times you're in a final round, what you do, you hop in, you get over to the first to tap the first cash box, and then you sit there and fight for 5 minutes, and then the
Hmm.
fight ends and the cash box finally gets tapped, and then someone moves it over and plugs it, and by the time it's plugged the team is respawned, and so you're going to fight over it there, and generally you'll get about two good team fights before each cash box is done. um, but you're not going to want to steal before the team is wiped unless you've got a few seconds last. It's a last second decision
Hmm.
to try and desperately grab that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you smoke up, you go up, you put heals, and you hop in there at the very end to try and snatch it out. Uh, but other than that, it's not like where you've got a chance of a third party, you're moving around a lot more, so you're gonna steal it about halfway through and then try to keep control of it, set up another drop, another way to deter a steal for yourself. Because it's a 1v1. You don't have to worry about that three party. You're not constantly having to, look around to see, okay, is there another team here? Um, a lot of times you'll see in a cash out, two teams fighting, one team comes out on top, they get the steal, but they only have one or two players up, and then another full health team just swoops in, stops them, and steals it back.
Hmm. Well, and one final note I do want to mention, about that match that we just watched. I really do feel bad for W Fears though, because as far as macro decisions though, they had it rough in the beginning, but I mean, they really did come around as far as macro decisions did. They made all the right plays. It's just the individual performance wasn't quite enough. I mean, we're talking barely. They were third place in the winning bracket. They were third place again, and they made the right call, which was to intercept red. That was absolutely the correct call, and they even succeeded. Just those little with matchups this close, every little thing matters. But either way, we're already going to see an immediate fight as Margin's going to spot out purple off the jump. That is going to be not a whole lot of damage, but immediate positional pressure. Now Margin going for the dive onto two. That's a little bit dicey, as it is an open corridor to try to escape. And yeah, we're going to see Margin get completely caught out here with Shining Sweep on the last shot to flush him out. That is quite big, but now we see the rest of AK Ace looking to try to retaliate here. They've got that line of sight on the box. But we're going to see Shining Sweep with the jump, able to take Doji. That's huge. And yeah, it's going to be a wipe as Vivid Kivada will be completely isolated. Brilliant play.
Again, so we've got team play being super important here. We did see Gear Gamer running out of ammo there and looking like he could be in a sticky situation. But then just to have Shining Sweep pull up and kind of save him there was huge. Now predictions. Do you have any for me?
Hmm. I am going to, kind of go on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think Little Skill Gap has really shown a lot of growth here. I think Little Skill Gap is going to be in the top 2. And I
Okay.
think we will see, I don't know about Control Alt Repeater, but I do have a lot of faith in either Rorik or Control Alt Repeater also getting up as well. I'm still not too convinced, with 8K Ace. I'm still not quite there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really do think that Control Repeater, while they are doing really good, Rorocorp has been incredibly consistent this whole time. And we might see them go on, but definitely I think Control Repeater, big favorite here. Would love to see TSG go through, obviously. And they've proved me wrong before. But something about their playstyle just hasn't felt quite on point today.
Hmm. Meanwhile, we do see kind of a big macro decision here from AK Ace. They are going to try to, try to engage them at the same level instead of playing above, but it does look like Little Skill Gap is going to be able to make it up on top, and that is going to allow them to intercept by breaching this vault, this cash out, which they absolutely do. Huge line of sight. Bit damage onto Margin, brings it down to half, but does able to close the gap onto Shining Sweep. That's going to be one down. They are going to attempt to steal, but they got a direct line of sight to try to intercept this. Margin down, so now your wedge, your pressure relief from above is gone, and you still have those above players to deal with. Time is starting to run out. Doji looking to try to get some damage in, but that witch is going to completely isolate. Again, the minigun is not exactly the best weapon to try to run away with when you get caught like that. You need your support or your utility escape. Otherwise, it's a wrap. Margin looking desperately to try and find something, but just gets wiped in turn. And with that, we will see the Little Skill Gap show their strides.
And that RPG from Gear Gamer to kind of open up that entire fight, it took Margin right out of that fight, set them up on a course to victory, I think. Now Pink did manage to secure their cash out, and so it's curious for me to see, Purple and Pink both sitting comfortably in first place, deciding to kind of go at it here. And I do wonder if Purple might branch off and try and go for 3. Does not appear to be the case, though.
No, it most certainly does not. But either way, now we're going to see that rapid advance over to the next cash out with Control Alt Repeater having that in control. But now we see the 2 titans of the lobby who are going to be, fighting this one out. We already see Little Skill Gap, who is playing from above, and Rovercorp is getting badly hurt here. And also the steal going off too. There's no one who's going to be able to stop this, as Purple is going to be able to take this off the grip. They do have that vertical punishment, and that's going to be Gear Gamer and Lone Wolf taking significant damage. Lone Wolf about to go down very low, but still in a survival position. When Rez comes in, though, the decision-making of Medium is going to be vital here. Has to Rez, go for heal, does manage to pull that off, and also take Wolf down in turn. That is a big reset here from the pressure that they had faced post-steal. They now have an opportunity to better stabilize their steal, but what you do see is with that gas, the damage ramping up, medium, low, Shining Sweep could get isolated here, and that could put Lone Wolf and Gear Gamer in a vulnerable position as far as damage sustained, especially with that vertical position that has been given up in exchange for more of a lateral fight. Falcon taking significant damage, does drop all the way down to the first floor. We are seeing Pink very badly splintered here, and that could be allowing for a wipe from Little Skill Gap, which they do successfully take.
Okay, and here's what I think went wrong there, right? We have them get Purple all the way down to a single player. And what do? They pull back. They were a little low. I'll give them that. They had the chance to defib while on height, but he decided to, drop down before getting that defib. They're heavy,
Ooh.
branched off and went to push, and it just split them up, right? And that is never a good recipe when you're fighting another team that is honestly the other Titan in this lobby.
This is a gnarly setup. You have the entire building that you could be at. Also, that little hut outside too, you could work with. I'm gonna be honest, if any team would be crazy enough to try to steal that, they're gonna be in for a very, very bad time to try to take that. But it doesn't look like anyone's gonna try to go for it, except for maybe Orange, but I think it's a bit too late here as pink or
Yeah,
purple's
I
pretty much just got
definitely,
this in the
yeah.
bag. Yeah, no, it's too late. But even then, that was still a nasty line of sight setup. But we are gonna see a desperate pitch to try to steal this other cash out. They do have one very low. That's gonna be Vivid Kavada, but they just can't get that last bit of damage out. Pink does actually try to attempt to steal here, but I think it's gonna be too late, especially with that drop. That's gonna be crucial to ensuring that AK Ace Red will be able to secure this. Now it's just gonna be the fallout, which is the team fight. All that's left is, I think, only one there, if I'm seeing this correctly. Yeah, it's only one. That's going to be Wolfwolf, and they do get him out. So, I mean, they had their cake and they ate it too. Goodness.
Correct. Yeah, and like we talked about earlier on in these matches, these wipes really not good for the teams, especially when it's been coming down to as close as it has been. That that percentage that you lose there is gonna massively disrupt your progress here. Whereas this team managed not only to get the cash out, but to keep from wiping and to get some more kills to boot. Now, it does look like we will be going into overtime, but not a super long one, right? Sometimes you get a plug in the last few seconds, and the actual timer on that cash out is going to be, down to only like a minute 15 seconds. And that can be, that can be something difficult to deal with because you don't just have a ton of time. But now we've got basically, a full cash out kind of there with only, a minute extended because it does look like Orange was able to plug that other one, which if they get, we'll keep, sorry, Purple was able to plug that other one. And Orange, if they get this one, will move into second.
Yeah, but if they want to steal, they got to steal fast as Pink is rapidly approaching. And now you've got the light in your face. They do still have that mesh field available, but now you have to deal with this problem too. Pink all alone. That's going to be Wolfwolf isolated. They do manage to clear that out, but we're seeing a lot of damage coming out. Margin to the rescue here, leaving it to just Falcon Lover to try to salvage this. But at this point, AK Ace has a golden opportunity to go for a secure steal. They're going from the corner, and they will be able to take that handedly. That is going to take away the opportunity from Orange. And with the way the timing is looking, there is still time to try to go for this if you're Orange, to try to salvage this, but the timing is going to be very tight here.
Now, if I were Orange, like I said, I would be going for Purple, right? Hope to get a third party, hope to get these players off of height, because by the time you get back over, to red, you're not going to have enough. And this just gives them that extra 5-10 seconds, which really can make all the difference. But it's not looking great for them, let's be honest here. Third party out of Pink will spice things up, though, as it draws Purple's attention to the right and gives Orange a chance to get in close.
Yeah, no, I mean,
they do have a winch player, which will be important for just getting it out of line of sight of Purple, right? Getting those heals in, keeping their heavy up, but Purple does just drop in and do major damage to clean them up.
Yeah, let's actually replay. Oh, actually, let's finish out this fight. Yeah, they do get that wipe. Pink's the last one. But the one thing I wanted to kind of point out was that goo actually completely torched their chances of trying to, recover that steal there. I gotta say, I am convinced. I am now convinced. Both for the little skill gap and AKAs. They really showed their strides here. They really differentiated the lobby there and proved why they are going to be continuing on in their little, winners bracket tirade that they have now been on. The recovery from the losers bracket, and now they've kind of taken it in strides. But I mean, for Pink and Orange, yeah, this is getting it's a little bit tense now as they kind of have a huge gap between Purple and Red. I mean, we're talking, between first and second, 10K gap, kind of neck and neck. But between or pink and orange, also 10K gap. But we're talking a 20K gap from first to second. So I mean, we are really seeing some significant differentiation here.
Yeah, unlike the last several matches we had where it was very much, by the skin of their teeth, getting second and third getting just barely edged out. We do have a much more, set in stone. Like we can see, okay, clearly there's this differentiation between first and second, where we've got, a $30,000 gap between second and third, and another 10,000 between third and last place. Now,
Hmm.
none of these teams are kicked out yet, right? We
Right.
have TSG, who came in first out of this one, which, listen, they've proved me wrong twice now, so I think I'll have to
Hmm.
start doubting, have to stop doubting them. Um, hopping into a winners bracket, uh, against Roro Corp. Sorry, not winners bracket, into a uh first on, I guess that's third, and then we'll see 8K playing Control Alt Repeater, to see who goes on to the final round, the grand final, for for the whole tournament. We're about to see kind of like who is going to bring this home. Uh,
Hmm.
and I want your thoughts. Do you think TSG, who struggled in the 1v1s early, has what it takes to get, Roro Corp out of this?
I think they've really gotten their, team play together. I think we will see a much better head to head coming from them. So I think there is a very strong possibility that they can, really blow this out. Because I mean, we didn't see a whole lot of third parties really at all. I mean, other than, flip flopping the attacking team every once in a while, I mean, it was pretty much head to head or two separate head to heads the entire time for the most part. And they stood their ground incredibly well. So I do think that they have a solid chance of winning that. I'm very confident in their ability to do that. But again, also too, Robocore has shown significant prowess there too. So I mean, it's kind of it's a tough call on who's gonna win. I think both teams will perform very well, but as far as who actually takes it home, that's a tough call. I really couldn't tell you who that is going to be. I mean, both of these teams are looking very handsome here, but either way, the one thing I do kind
And
of want to point out is we
yeah.
saw Wolf, or
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think it was Wolf was able to put out, significant damage with 5,400 damage. But also too, from 8K Ace, we also witnessed Doji pulling out very close numbers as well, which is surprising because we've seen Doji get isolated, a number of times. But either way, it's very clear that the coordination is significantly better as far as supporting their composition. It over time we have seen that improve. So that is a big improvement from AKAs. Unfortunately, this just wasn't a good matchup for them, and they weren't able to really secure a whole lot of cash outs. But I mean, yeah, Wolf with the amount of damage that they were able to pull off from Control Alt Repeater, I think that we won't see that matchup, but I think that's going to be an absolute bloodbath as far as damage goes. I think they're going to be very aggressive. But as far as the little skill gap and rower core, I really don't have a prediction. I think that it is going to be incredibly close between them.
Listen, I don't want to put the caster's curse on them, especially since I've been doubting
Uh-oh.
them this whole time. But because of that, think I have to go TSG now. I think I'm a TSG guy. I will say on the other side of the aisle, 8K. I mean, they were in that first round that we watched. Just stopped, right? They came through. They did really good. Um, I think they're playing on Sis Horizon, which they did struggle with earlier on. So I'm not sure how that will affect them, right? They're playing minigun sword and FCAR, if I remember correctly.
Uh-huh.
And the minigun and the sword on this can be a little bit more challenging. But let's get into this Fangwai City match between TSG, Roro Corp, and let's just see where this goes, right? I'm giving my money to TSG, right? They can take it. They can have it. I'm so sorry. I'm not gonna cast a curse you.
Well, that will remain to be seen. Yeah, I mean, I hope not. But I do think it's really interesting how Rover Core is going to be going into this with invisibility. I don't really see that a lot off of lights. I know we saw uh Mart or margin playing that just a little bit. We did see that. So I do wonder what kind of, effect that's going to have. But I think this is great for, trying to set up ambushes, especially now they've already got the tap. And now this is free information with the LH1, able to get just a little bit of chip damage, but it is basically going to just immediately alert them to where they are. That ambush didn't really have a whole lot of impact for them here. And right now it's just a building to building fight. And with how far they pushed up, they've basically given control of that box over to Gear Gamer, but he's going to take significant damage with that box running out in that open space. That's just an LH1's dream, kind of fight to take. Someone running away, long corridor. I mean, you can just get so much damage, as we clearly see. Gear Gamer at very low health. They are still trying to book it, but they are going to get cut off, but not without taking one in turn. Mojang going down.
Yeah, Lone Wolf with that pick on Mojang is big for them, right? We are going to see an attempted res come out, but it does slow the pace down, and it does look like Orange is going to push this, right? They're not playing passively. They're playing very aggressively, which is really cool to see. RPG out of Lone Wolf, but way more damage out of You Scared, right? This is great trades, but, it does look like Orange is going to be on the back foot here, as they did drop to try and clean that up and really didn't get that done. Now we do have a flank coming in from behind, big damage, but he's going to have to dip out of there.
Oh yeah, well, he's completely alone. You kind of have to at that point. But what I do like to see out of this is how Pink is keeping the pressure onto Orange, and that keeps him away from the objective. We do see a 1-for-1 here. You scared of what goes down. Same with Shining Sweep. And that is going to, really kind of put them on the ropes. But as Chaos Juju will be able to take out another, that's going to be Pink. All of that pressure, that they have tried to set up after taking a point is now really starting to pay off, as Mojang's the last one. And it does look like that visibility is going to fade away. They do catch him out. And yeah, Mojang's going to be out. The objective going into Orange's hand, right? This is where it's so important that once you get that objective, don't, just start to huddle around the objective, especially if you got someone down, they're at a known position and you are unknown. That is not only a positional advantage with verticality, but it's also an intel gap. It would almost been criminal for Roro Core to have stayed back on the objective. You absolutely sink your teeth into that. I mean, that's a golden opportunity to give yourself so much time. I mean, look at where the cash out is timer-wise. It will be a miracle for Roro Core to even have enough time to attempt to steal. You're going to have to basically go directly into this.
And we do see a very aggressive push, right? Clearing the C4, which gives the drop, getting rid of the heavy, trying to get him away from the RPG. But at the end of the day, it's just not going to be enough. It was a desperate push. Those don't tend to work out the best when you have a team that has set up as well as TSG did. Now, here's another thing to look at. We did have, the C4 underneath. We had the RPG ready to drop. But I think it was the right decision to, kind of go full force in there. I think maybe what you could have done differently is try to have someone kind of branch off. I know you've got Winch over there. Maybe you try and move that cash box. It felt a little too desperate.
Well, the problem goes all the way back before the cash out even started, which was losing Mojang, right? When you're that close to the cash out and you lose a player, you're absolutely going to jump them when they're going for a revive. That is where the problems really started. Don't get me wrong. Go ahead and chase for the vault. Try to stop it, reconvene, keep the pressure, get the box back in your control. So that way you can defend rather than attack, which is always going to be easier to do. But when you lose one so close to the cash out, well, now you just flip the axis and the defenders can get proactive, get aggressive, keep you away from the box and force you into a team fight that you're not well poised for. That's where it all really fell apart. Looking into this next fight, Mojang tries to find an opportunity, but is going to get isolated on the rooftop. There's not a lot of cover from these positions. This is where you want a dash, but with that invisibility, it's not going to do much to save you, especially when you use it to attack rather than escape. But to be honest, once you take damage, it would have went away anyway. But 12 seconds
Yeah.
down and both pink below. There is not going to be really a good means to try to go for a revive here. Great goo mine as Shining was in quite a tight spot here. You see some moderate damage onto Orange, but they are continuing to chase that shield, holding you scared of what for dear life. Mojang now gets the res. It's going to be beelining it back, try and help assist this situation. Attempted revive is going to be unsuccessful, and it will actually leave little skill gap worse for where both players low, and it's going to be a wipe. Mojang there to come in and save the day. Let's get a replay of that if we can. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to that pressure. You know, especially, right, finding that opportunity. You had Lone Wolf, who was half health, and then you had Gear Gamer going for that revive, and then Mojang coming in to save the day. That is so big. That is the kind of opening that is going to allow you to turn things around. Now it's going to be little skill gap who is on the hunt to try to salvage this, not the other way around, especially with the LH1. Closing that gap is going to be kind of scary. They're going to have to play from below, which leads right into the trap. As we see here, big damage going out to Heavy is going to barely survive with that heal. They do attempt to steal, but we're going to see that deep dive with the visibility from Mojang and the winch to disrupt it, and it does look like we will see that, or Roro Core keep that box. That one wipe makes all the difference. I mean, they do end up getting eliminated, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Little skill, or World Record, they got away with it, right? And they were able to take that
Yeah.
time. That's all that matters.
Now, what do we think TSG? Yeah, TSG could have done better.
It was just
For
exposure.
me,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I think what you needed to do there is really capitalize on. You saw at the beginning there, right? They took out Mojang. You know, they were really on top of that until the second half of it, where it just kind of fell apart. They were sitting down on the cash box. They didn't really have a great way to stall it, and then you saw it kind of fall apart when they lost their medium and they were sitting there, you know, not sure what to do. They're shooting back and forth. They're kind of moving around. I would have just left, right? You had the opportunity to try and revive there. He kind of sat in the open to try and get that revive, which I think is a mistake. I think at that point you need to pick up the player token and just
Well,
kind of get out of there, reposition, get the res up. You know, try and steal back if they steal it, but they weren't even stealing it, right? They were trying to get set up for a better play. You still were at a 2v2 situation there. You were actually at a 2v1 initially, and you didn't push it. You just kind of sat back, had a lot of free damage done to you, and that's kind of what did you in. Now, with this fight coming in, the cash out's already applied, right? Deal coming in through pink, and a big drop here to kind of stop that. Low damage all across orange. 1v1 now, but it does look like the light will clean that up. Mojang with his LH1 just kind of flying in there, and he's been doing that all day. He's been doing good about getting in close. Bad move there, but does look like they will be able to recover.
Well, the other thing that I've noticed that's kind of been a consistent theme from last fight or squad fight to this one is little skill gap. They see one person and they jump into a huge choke point that is close quarters. When you look at Rigocore's composition, it is perfect for doling out massive damage when the little skill gap, they jump themselves into a tight position like that. LH1, huge burst damage. Shaq 50 loves those tight fights, right? It's got 3 bullets that spreads out. When you're that close, every single bullet's connecting. That is massive damage. Little skill gap has to stop cornering itself, trying to pursue a player on road. That's how they're falling apart here. But they do manage to offset a little bit of positioning to try to attempt to steal. I think it's too late, even if they are able to steal all the way through. Yeah, no, absolutely. It is gonna be too late, as we will see Pink actually be the ones to finish this out. But yeah, no, quartering themselves like they did there, that's really, kind of where they went wrong here. I mean, their overall squad fighting, I think, was stronger, but Roro Core did an amazing job of finding, those tight corners and tight positions where they can just mag dump, and there's really no escape for the little skill gap, and they kept getting themselves trapped. Had they opened it up a little bit more, or had they had a way to get out of those corridors and tight positions, they may have came out of those fights better for wear. But those last two fights, yeah, they really sealed the deal. And yes, you
Yeah,
did
and
cast your curse them, by the way.
unfortunately, that does appear to have been the case. Looking at the scoreboard here, you have great stats coming out of TSG. I think what we saw there at the end, unfortunately, was desperation. They got nervous, they got panicky, they started making silly decisions, silly mistakes. Um, but honestly, their team played so well. I think that if this team were to decide to like try and get coaching and work together on that, I think that they really could, do really well in competitive. Maybe not at the highest scene, but as someone who's watched a lot of coaching, you can see the decisions that they were making were well informed. It was just when they got kind of panicked that things started to fall apart. Now, not to take away from RoRoCorp playing really well there at the end. They started off shaky, cleaned it up there, 2 back to back. Uh, you don't see as many kills on their side, but we do see, you know, great support out of You Scared. As a heavy, that is, a wild amount of support. Most in the match, beating out, the enemy medium. His heal ball, he used it multiple times. I saw it really, clutching up a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah,
All right, so I did
and
get a confirmation. It does look like Control Alt Repeater was able to win it out against 8K Ace. Which is kind of, an upset, at least for me. They really were showing a lot of potential. They were coming back very strong, but I guess their composition was just a bit too inflexible for them to pivot around Cult Control Alt Repeater. They have a very good all around composition, and it just proved too much to bear. I guess there was some, gaps that were exploited. But with that being said, we're now going to be soon moving on to our grand final, which is going to be Roro Core versus Control Alt Repeater. That is going to be our final matchup for today. So lock in for that. It's going to get real spicy. But let me ask you this, yeah. Who do you think is going to come out on
and
top
yeah,
here?
yeah. I mean, looking at it, I hate to say it this way. I don't know. Like, right, we're looking at this, and it's both teams that lost the cash out final, moved along. And that's what I was kind of saying earlier of final rounds are just a totally different monster than the cash outs. And you see a lot of difference in how a team approaches that. Now we could argue, did they get like lucky wins, and some things are, you can see better with best out of threes, best out of fives. But in this limited view that we've got, it does seem that, Control Repeater, they won their first one, they won their second one. They've gone this whole time, and then they, oh wait, I think I was wrong there. It looks like Control Alt Repeater was one of the they were one of the losers. Control Repeater wins all of their matches up until the cash out final, loses that, gets sent up against 8K, you know, who won, they won their initial matchup. They lost, get sent into losers bracket, come back from losers bracket to win in cash out final, only to get knocked out in the end there. And so we do see a lot of shuffling back and forth of teams that, drop to losers, coming out in the end, making it into the final round, teams that have gone strong all the way through, kind of getting knocked out there in the end. And that's this whole thing of like how unpredictable the finals can be,
Hmm.
especially when you get down to like, you know, you could just be playing have a bad day. Like it's like this in every sport, but I feel like the finals leans itself into like the whole dynamism aspect. Just makes sometimes it makes your mistakes to where it's like, oh, I made a mistake there, wasn't a big deal. Other times it just amplifies it tenfold, right? You can be sitting there and just not. too great. It does look like we are gonna have is it best of 3 for the last round prediction? Best of 3 for the last
Ooh.
round. Our maps are Nozomi, Monaco, and Sis Horizon. These are
Mm.
all, you know, some of the more popular maps when it comes to ranked, so I'm glad to see that coming in there. Um, Nozomi is a map that we haven't seen yet today. So is Monaco. Um, yeah, so just really excited to get into this, see what happens. And then obviously if it's gets down to the final match, which I really hope it does, we don't have a total blowout. We'll get to finish it all out on Sis Horizon, which is just kind of the pinnacle of ranked the finals, in my opinion.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's kind of funny because, that progression of maps is basically my one-to-one progression for least favorite map to most favorite map. You have Nozomi, which, okay, wrong, correction. It's not my least favorite map. I like to think it doesn't exist, but Las Vegas unfortunately still does exist.
Kyoto.
What did you just say?
Sorry, what? Huh?
Oh, I oh, okay. I think we got a little bit of trash talk going on here. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Meet me on
sorry.
Las
Sorry.
Vegas Sniper v Sniper on light. Let's see who wins that one.
Listen, listen.
I'm terrible. I'm kidding.
See me personally. I was saying how much Kyoto is just not great, especially when it comes to ranked, which is why most people don't run it. It's usually banned. Um,
Yeah.
Nozomi is an interesting one to like truly passionately hate, just because a lot of people do enjoy it. I personally find it very fun. You've got these wide open areas. You've got buildings, but the buildings, honestly, their rooms are pretty big and can have multiple levels that you can shoot from. I think it really just like amplifies. Like you have so many corners where people could come from. You've got great places to drop. But yeah, looking into this, you've got some great damage coming from Woofle on to Mojang to start it out, but no kills yet.
Yeah. I think the one thing for me is just how difficult it is in order to establish verticality. You have to invest so much in your utility in order to quickly, scale these buildings, and with how tall they are, I think that's the thing that kind of bothers me. But then again, I'm biased as a medium heavy main. But either way, we do see Wolf will go down. That's going to be the first one. And we're going to see Mojang take significant damage, but is able to get healed back up. Medium's going to get caught out. They do try to heal Goo to cut off. That RPG does manage to catch one, but not the others. And they are going to be able to recover that health immediately. Now we're going to see Falcon try to go for that revive, but in the cost of Amazing Astro will go down. It's now going to be up to this revive to try and recover. But as far as Amazing Astro goes, I don't think that revive is going to be possible unless Roro Core completely backs off here. So this might just be a situation of coining. But it does look like they will fully move over to the first cash out, so they will be able to get that revive. It's going to be a reset, but Pink has the control. Or I'm sorry, Orange has the control.
Yeah, Orange did a really good job of seeing kind of they had the advantage there, but didn't have a ton of great information on where the team had moved to. And so instead of trying to like spread out and go through the buildings and chance getting jumped or having a revive that, come out of Pink and catch them off guard, they were able to just go ahead, get the plug started, get themselves set, get the cash out defended, and set themselves up
Wow.
on height. Pink is having to push from beneath, but they do a really good job of going themselves off, and they'll be able to push from, anywhere. They could come from the stage, they could blow up the floor. Like, that's what I love about this game. That's what gets me so invested into this game.
Well, it's also a great recovery and a save for Falcon. If it wasn't for that goo, I mean, you saw Mojang was right close on tail to getting that elimination. And had they done that, they would have been very poorly poised to try to go for, a steal here. But now they have an opportunity. They do get that steal started. That is going to force Roro Core to consolidate their positions here. And that's going to allow for Pink to coordinate and attack here. But they are kind of funneled. They only have one real entryway to work with. So they're going to be rotating down from below, which is going to be costly considering we're now at 3/4 done for that cash out. They want to go for the steal. They're going to have to take that initiative and be aggressive with it. They do drop that cash box, but you do have all the players with orange above. One goes down, and it's going to be heavy. You scared of what? Taking significant damage. Wolfie's going to try to go for the kill, but run
mine.
straight into a mine. No! Another one goes down. It's a 1v1. Mojang to take it. gonna be eliminating Amaze and Astro, and it will be their cash box. Man, that was a violent drop. But I mean, good recovery coming in from Orange. It was tight, but eliminating Wolf, especially with that mine, was really where the tides turned.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Pink had the advantage there, and that was just an unfortunate, well, I would say unfortunate, but just a well-placed mine, honestly, to kind of block off that entrance or exit, as it turns out, and get them up a player, you know? It was a 2v2 situation, or 3v2 situation, with one of them low, and it just ended up working out really poorly for them. Now, Pink does get one down, and it looks like we're going to get a second down here, too, on Orange. Damage coming out of You Scared, but he is, you know, just going to probably go down to this in the end. As we see there, there was just a lack of health there, a lack of backup utility, whereas, you know, we had Astro just coming in with that F-car, which, me personally, big F-car fan. Great damage, you know, great range, but also good up close. I think that's definitely one of the best medium weapons in the game.
Absolutely, it is so good when it comes to its damage output. So reliable. I will say though, with how fast Robocore took that fight, instead of, you know, trying to slow it down and go for the revive, they will be able to stay very close to where that cash out objective is going to be in order to go for an immediate retake. So usually, you know, you obviously don't want to squad wipe, but for head-on-head, ironically, it can be a good idea to let yourself get wiped like that, just so that way you can start out the cash out much closer than if one person were to be able to run away. But another mine going to catch Mojang this time around instead of Wolf. Looks like both are playing dirty on the lights with those mines. It's going to be back in turn, but that revives in a vulnerable position, and that's going to result in Mojang going down. That defib completely nullified, and now the next revive that they want to go for one is going to be much riskier, as Wolf and Falcon Lover are both still alive. Still gonna attempt that revive anyway, as it does look like we'll see Control Alt Repeater back off into the lower floor, allowing them to go for that drop. But either way,
And we did see a full reset from both teams. Great move trying to stand on top of it to take that steal, as sometimes you can ride the cash box down. Great damage coming out of Mojang there to clean up that kill, and that whole team is low. Now is a time that I would go for a steal. Players are low, they're in terrible positioning, and honestly, it's just a good time. Now, we do have Falcon Lover coming in with a lot of damage, just trying to rain down on You Scared. And it is now a 1v1, 2 mediums. Astro is down, and it does look like Chaos is going to be able to get Scared back up.
yeah, right now it is very
We see
tough.
a coin out of Waffle, and Falcon does go for the hand res there. I think this is where the tides will turn here, right? We just got a great wipe out of them. It's now 1-1 on the cash boxes. It's anyone's game. Seeing how the teams have been playing, I'm really liking Control Alt Repeater. Now, don't want to caster's curse anyone. Robocorp obviously has looked great this entire game. They've looked great. But the way they played this last cash box really does make me lean towards them. But nothing is certain by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Mojang with that LH1 has just been shredding and doing such a great job. Getting the flank, repositioning well. But he will go down to Woofle in his 93R, but he will be low and get cleaned up.
No, that's actually kind of rough, because I have noticed that for Robocore, Mojang really is their enabler. They set up the ambushes and the attacks, and the rest of the team goes in. But now what we're seeing is Wolf going, or Mojang going down, and then everyone else just kind of falls apart, right? I don't think You Scared of What and Chaos Juju has that momentum in order to really, you know, drive that initiative. Mojang's kind of the one who sets that tempo, and then You Scared of What and Chaos are the ones who sustain it. But what is there to sustain when the initiative is dead, and that initiative dies when Mojang is gone? And that's what we kind of saw with that fell apart there. I really do think for Robocore, Mojang is kind of, you know, the single point of failure for them. Every time we've seen Mojang go down early, that it usually does not go very well. They unless they can, get a recover. Like Mojang really is kind of that initiator. I mean, it's kind of what Light is supposed to be, but it really does fall on that Light player. But meanwhile, for Control Alt Repeater, they sure do love their vertical, and that I think really does give them edge, especially with that steep line of sight that we saw on the last cash out. But also too, with the lack of maneuverability for vertical, if they get cut off on their verticality, I really do think they can get too far separated for Pink to be able to take a steal. It's building that wedge, I think, is what's going to allow World Report to hold this out. And there's not a whole lot of verticality here. Even though they have the initial control down to half, I think there's a lot of opportunity here for that to get shaken up if they get isolated from this box, which is a very hard position to overtake, especially as Chaos Juju gets bursted down by Falcon Lover. It's going to be the 2v3. They do have the barricade up. They could try to go for a revive, a recover here, but either at the moment, yeah, there it is. The revive finally goes through. Wolf goes down. You still have them locked down on this position, and they are ultimately going to jump down here. Robocore, they do spot them. This is huge, and we see Falcon Lover and Amazing Astro are completely cornered here. They do successfully get the winch to pull one close, but it's going to be a counter winch in return, and there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. They're taking significant burst damage. Falcon Lover goes down. Amazing Astro is stuck in the corner. Do see that revive, though, but either way, they do actually manage to get all of their players back up. And now with such little time, Robocore is in a rush to start a counter steal. Right now, it looks like they're just gonna fall apart on the jump, and the vertical from Control Alt Repeater will be what it takes for them to come out on top in this Little League.
Now, I will say, this isn't the end. This is best of 3.
Oh,
Keep that
right.
in mind. Now, yeah. Yeah, you're
Game
jumping the
one,
gun
game
here.
one.
Game one. Now, I didn't caster curse them that time.
Yeah, this time.
Just putting that out there. Just putting that out there. My record now has 1 spot of light on the ever darkening record of me cursing people. Now, here is what I thought about, kind of the whole team comp. Mojang is kind of like this adhesive that is holding the team together in the fact that when he goes down, they seem to kind of crumble. Do I think that he's necessarily like their one player? Because like losing any player is big, right? Why do I think it's so important when Mojang goes down? I'm not seeing as much damage coming out of Chaos or Scared as I would like to see, right? Mojang is really going in there, putting in the work. Chaos and Scared are, keeping them up, keeping positioning, dropping the cash outs, doing all the things that they should be doing. But you're seeing a team that is like so good coming against them that when the light goes down and their damage is taken aback, it really just puts in a dent that's really hard to recover from. And I think that we can say that for a lot of their players too. I think that they rely heavily on each other, which in one hand is very good, but when you're going up against, such a great other team to where you struggle to function when you're missing one player and you really have to have your full team comp there, it's hard, right? You don't have a ton of flex in this comp that they have, right? They're playing their parts and their parts only. We need teammates that can, kind of flex to fit the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and the other
All right,
thing,
we are hopping into the next round here, and we've got, we're on Monaco, which, I think is a great map, but is unpopular for a lot of people. I think what's interesting to see here, especially after having been a part of PHL, is just there seems to be somewhat a lack of communication that goes on, right? In PHL, you see teams waiting for their medium to place the jump pads so they can all move in together. You see teams all waiting to take a gateway together. You see, there's this amount of communication that happens when you play on a high level and for so long that you kind of start to miss in these games. We are about to get a plug really early on in the game before really many kills have gone out. But does look like You Scared is going to take out amazing Astro here. And but it does look like Pink will go ahead and get that plug. They're down a player. I think they need to pull back, reset, and maybe not take this fight. A huge RPG though, huge mine coming out of out of Falcon Lover.
Whoa.
And they really did just turn this around. Go for
Wow.
a full wipe here. Huge.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there wasn't really much saving you. You had two statues that were directly, by the site. Can we get a replay of that RPG, possibly? I mean, yeah, this was a very tough situation to try to save here. There's not a lot that you can do there except, kind of just force a reset. I mean, you had your light who was caught out in the open, the RPG devastating everyone. There's not a lot that you can try to salvage from this. It's either you waste 2 coins just to have one person hold out, or you just reset. And that was kind of the correct choice. But Wolf is going to take significant damage. This is kind of where I get concerned for Rorocore, or for, Control Alt Repeater, right? Having someone that deep out at such an open space, don't get me wrong, Dash can allow you to get away with a lot, but with the kind of burst damage that Rorocore has available to them, that's very dicey. Because all it takes is, the right amount of shots from 2 different players coming in at once to completely wipe you out before you can even react. I mean, Dash isn't just perfectly responsive. There is a little bit of a reaction delay to Dash kicking in.
And not only that, but, Light's health pool, there's not much to work with there. And so when you have 3 people shooting at you, even if they're not hitting all of their shots necessarily, it's just not going to work out well for you if you have 0 cover, right? They're all going to hit some of their shots. We do see a desperate cash out at steal attempt. That looks like it could have gone right, but does end up going wrong. 3v1 situation for Mojang, and he does go down, unfortunately, giving the first of our cash boxes to Control Alt Repeater.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too, was Rorocore's timing on trying to take that cash out wasn't exactly too late. They did have an ample amount of time to try to go for a steal there, but the raw amount of utility that Control Alt Repeater has invested towards stalling that position out and that cash out, whether it's from fire, from explosives, what have you, it proved too much to bear for Rorocore, which proves an interesting dynamic. Because now the problem becomes, I love this patience here until they get completely out in the open. But unfortunately for, the team, Falcon Lover and Amaze and Astro just aren't close enough to really fully punish. They do get good damage onto Mojang here, and that's going to allow for a potential clear. They do get Mojang out. This roof fight is looking rough for Rorocore, which is problematic if you have this much stall utility at hand. You know what that allows for? It allows for you to have dominant control once you actually start it, right? The problem here for Rorocore is letting Control Alt Repeater get control, because then they can lock it down, and retaking it becomes a constrained effort. You can't just go in and go for the steal. You have to, remove the utility and then find out where the lines of sights are and break them apart. That takes a ridiculous amount of time. Rorocore has to get initial control. They've got to intercept this. Otherwise, if they don't, we're going to see that setup hell, come right back.
And I feel like we did see, a little bit of impatience out of Rorocore. They ended up getting Woofle low and then just, absolutely all pushing together without having any information on the whereabouts of Falcon or Astro. And I think that's just really detrimental to them, and that's kind of what was their undoing. They got caught out in the open with Astro, sorry, not Astro, with Woofle having the 93R from one side, and then Falcon and Astro coming in from the other side, really putting in work and getting that cleaned up fight earlier.
Yeah, and I do think this is really good from Rorocore to try to clear out from the building, but we do see them get significantly split up here. You scared of what? Mojang and Chaos, they're all pretty much separate 1v1s for Control Alt Repeater. With their dominant building control and verticality that they have available, they can really split this up and isolate the players one at a time. And it's going to be difficult for Mojang to dip in because all they have is invisibility to revive or to try to, catch someone at an ambush. Now they do have control alt repeater close by, so they can get a good retaliation. They do manage to take Falcon Lover out. That's huge. It's just going to leave Wolf, who's the last one. And especially when all of the statues are on site, it's going to be very hard to try to recover this. And the longer that control alt repeater goes without being wiped out, or, with it ticking down, especially if the steal succeeds, which it does, now the pressure is on the coin, which they will both do. They don't really have a choice, so they have less coin flexibility for the next objective, and they're on a time crunch too. I mean, Rorocore just played the perfect hand here by forcing Wolf to stay back for as long as they had to.
An unfortunate glitch grenade there as he tried to kind of block it off, but it doesn't look like it ended up being necessary anyways, as that was already something that Mojang had taken. Now, what's interesting to me is that you were talking about how it was going to be difficult for Mojang to dip in there, especially only having invis earlier. But what I saw was that he actually stepped back and rezzed Chaos Juju, which I think was definitely the right move there. We will see a res that is attempted here. And it looks like Orange is just gonna, kind of clean this up. It did look like Pink might have gotten it at the end there, but unfortunately, defib, when you have the ability to just get a player back like you do when you run defib, it can be so game changing because if one team has got a light or a heavy left and the other team's got a medium and you can get the other player up, that then quickly becomes a 2v1.
I think with the timing here and the fact that Mojang was the last one to to come back into the fight, we are going to see a very quick, follow-up and engagement. There's not going to be a lot of time to set up here. I mean, we're already seeing control alt repeater rapidly approach, and they do call the right spot where they're going to be coming from. And they do now have this roof-on-roof fight that's going to have to be crossed. But here's the ambush. This is what we're talking about. Big damage onto Wolf. That's where the invisibility really shines, but pushes up a bit too far out of cover and can't get back in on time. That's Mojang down. That ambush had big damage, but thanks to Amaze and Astro, they do get that heal onto Wolf back up. So now, with Mojang's statue on the roof, it's going to be a 2v3. That winch going way too far out to try to grab it is going to take significant damage. Does get those heals back up, but not before another fight with the light, who ends up overcommitting Wolf, going down, not able to get out and escape in time, trying to get the jump on them. And with Mojang back up, it's gonna be now a 3v2 for the next 18 seconds. And with that statue and a mine on top, there's not really an easy or accessible way to try to get that revive. Either way, for the time being, it does look like it's anyone's game for getting that box. No one has solid control. One down from you scared of what, but will go out in return for the kill. Heavy down to half out, or low. Wolf also down to half. And with no heals in sight, Wolf does recover on health. There is an opportunity to go for the jump, but instead, Mojang is going to take that box and run with it. But Wolf with dash can easily close this gap and force another fight here.
Yeah, and what we did just hear up behind him was a gateway. We've got that whole team moving in on him. He's the last one alive, and he's taking damage here. Now, he was able to last long enough to get a coin back in, and he does try and hide and kind of play his position a little bit better, but is unfortunately spotted out by the other team.
Uh-oh, and here's where
they
problems...
do have time to have some amount of setup, but it does look like they're just going to get rid of the box. They want to play this slowly. They don't want to give them an easy setup, to just take control of the cash out while they're down a player. Can we just talk about the fact that, Juju, Chaos Juju, is just surgical with a lot of these grenades. Some of the bounce shots that I've seen him hit, just some of the placements, the throws have just been really on point and really great to see.
Yeah, especially for a lot of these building fights, it's incredibly useful to, be able to flush players out of corners, get them into exposed positions where you can, take those fights together. I think that serves a lot to help mitigate, splintering or, getting too far apart with each other. It allows you to take those fights together instead of trying to go one-on-one. Big damage from Amazing Astro. My goodness, is he beaming with that F card. But It will result in Mojang going down again. That's that enabler, and they are in a safe position with that roof or covered in order to get that revive. They're back up, but Chaos Juju with that defib is going to have to use that to get their stack back up. Both teams full and full, but one trap in the attic, the other one free to roam above. The flexibility is going to win, and that's why we'll see Wolf end up going down, trying to get out from that position. They are completely boxed in. Fire burning. Mojang down. Gets bursted from the Lewis gun. It's going to be now a 2-2. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. They do find a gap to be able to climb back up, and that's going to be taken to effect in order to get rid of Amazing Astro. Another one falls. It's you scared or what? And it's a bloodbath out into the attic. One very low. Falcon Lover, medium down. They can't really get a heal, but it does allow for an opening to get that burst down. Now that he doesn't even know it, but there's a player reviving right around the corner. Does manage to get that defib. It's going to be a 2-1-2. Control Repeater looks a lot better to try to put on even more pressure as Chaos Juju barely squeaks it out with a sliver of health. All three players are up. Mojang still down. One coin left. Can still use it, but after this, if Mojang goes down again, off on the beaten path, Mojang ain't coming back without a revive. And now that the cash out has started, that's going to be even riskier to use that coin. Instead, they go for the revive. That flexibility is going to be important now that the timer's up, especially with Control Alt Repeater having it in hand, where they can set up with mines and stall, which they love to do.
These house on house fights are really interesting because it does. I mean, you've got this massive variety of one moment you're all the way across the map from each other, shooting each other, and then the next moment, for some reason, you're stuck in a tiny attic together, just
Oh, they still got the
fist to
steal.
fist, just murdering each other. And what we'll see is the steal that does go through, and just a very nice cleanup on Pink with a very unfortunate respawn timer of about 24 seconds. At that point, cash out's more than halfway done. You're probably sitting at, almost 3/4, and you've got a limited amount of time to get back in here. I could very easily see us going into a third round.
I think it's going to go into a third round. Control Alt Repeater doesn't exactly have the strongest setup to try to retake this. Their kit is heavily anchored towards, stall and delay from Falcon Lover. Don't get me wrong, Wolf could take initiative here, but with all of these tight corridors and corners that you have to navigate just to be able to get onto the cash out, I don't think that's going to be a very easy task to be able to accomplish here. And again, they have to move fast. They finally get on the rooftop, ready to go for that drop down. But with how tight the time is, all they have to do is prevent Control Alt Repeater from scaling down this building in order to ensure their own win. And they do go for the winch, but I think it's getting to be too late for the grab. Forced off. We'll see one down, another. That's Falcon Lover and Amazing Astro. Wolf, the last one alive, and with such little time, yeah, it's too late. We're going to be going into round 3.
Yeah, and I mean, great plays by both teams, right? And I'm so glad we did actually get to go into round 3. What we've seen so far is two very even teams, right? Neither of them have 2-0'd on either of these initial ones. We're going into a round 3, and that just makes things more exciting. Now, let's take a look at the scoreboard here once it pulls up. And what we'll see is 11 kills out of the heavy. 11. Can we see this?
Yeah.
That's
Whew.
absurd. That's insane. And I mean, we've got clean sevens across the opposing team. But what really stuck out to me is that, look at the support score for both teams. On
Oh,
on one
yeah.
hand, we've got one team with like one player, the medium, who's got, a pretty good support score. Nothing, it's fine. On the other side, we've got the medium with double that, and the other players with 2, 3, 4 times as much, 8 times as much, as their opposing side. And so what we're seeing is support matters, right? While you might have crazy combat scores on the bottom, they weren't too far off on either side, but the support is very one-sided there.
Oh yeah, no, it really did lean heavily on the heavy for the kills in order to try to, you know, save a lot of those situations. And the other thing that's kind of interesting too, is seeing how Mojang is still getting isolated, but this time around, we're seeing you scared of what who is carrying a lot of weight in order to keep them on the up and up. And as far as control alt repeater goes, I have found that once they lose control of the cash out, they don't really ever get it back. Like once it's gone. They don't come back from that. But when they have that initial control or control of the vault, it is a nightmare for Rorocore in to get a recovery. And I think that, comes a lot from how Monaco plays out, those dynamics. It's a lot harder to keep control over the box because of how many different angles you can play on from the building and you can absolutely just wreck everything. So I mean, it's very hard to, keep a solid setup held up because all it takes is one RPG and your C4 is gone, your mines are gone, everything is cleared from that one RPG, especially if the cash box is on a corner that and that corner's outside, you can just blow that up and suddenly you have access to the cash out and everything's cleared. You want to dive, go right ahead. But also too, control alt repeater was also kind of playing a little bit too far from their objective a lot of times, and that allowed a lot of opportunities for Record to sneak in and steal, which is actually how they won, I believe, both of their boxes or the vaults.
Correct. Yeah, and another thing that we keep seeing out of Core is this: they get low, and so they back off. They reposition, they reset, and I'm just not seeing that out of Control Alt Repeater. And that's something that I think we're gonna need to see if they want to, take this last one home. Um, Interestingly, I think that well, I do have a prediction here. I think I want to give it to Rorocore, simply for the fact that they are the ones who have been able to go in and steal. And while they have had trouble, because of the amount of, tech that is put in by Control Repeater, they've been able to do it some, and I feel like I haven't seen it go at all the other way, right?
Yeah, no, it really doesn't seem like Control alt repeater has the strongest, post blowout recovery, from a matchup. They do get a lot of damage onto the light and the medium, and though they are going to be on the chase, however, but with that much damage, once they do cash it in, I think they're going to be in for a rough fight, especially with their heavy is currently displaced at the moment. You scared or what? Does manage to finally link back up on the bridge. It doesn't look like Control alt repeater is going to be able to capitalize on the recovery. There's not much for a punishment. So both teams are fully up and ready to go to try to duke it out. We do see Wolf, meanwhile, in the backside trying to go for those, a little bit of chip damage, but I don't think you're going to get much of those opportunities. That cash out is not that much exposed or in relation to the players trying to defend it. So they do get a little bit of damage onto Scared of What, but it's going to be immediately recovered and healed back up. So right now, there's not really a big opening like Control alt repeaters look for, but they're going to try to make one with that jump pad. They do get half damage down to Scared of What and Chaos Juju, but with that shield and no player being eliminated, they will still be able to recover, but the health is looking a bit low, and this is going to be an advantage that Control alt repeater can use to try to dive in further, and they do secure one. Scared of What? That's the heavy now down. Moj goes down with it. Chaos Juju. It's going to be a perfect squad fight in favor of Control alt repeater.
Yeah, and what I saw here was something that I was wondering about, which is range, right? The kind of openness of this map is not doing, a ton of favors to Chaos or Yusuke. Now, Mojang, I feel like, could try to capitalize on this, but I didn't really see that in this last fight, and I think that's something he, should do if he wants these team fights to go better. We're seeing some great plays. I don't think they've got enough time to steal, even if they do move in fast, which, they do appear to be doing. It takes a full, last I checked, 6 seconds to steal. That number has been shifting around, but they might have time here. Luckily for Control alt repeater, it looks like they had some before on that to drop it.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, Robocore does get the wipe, but again, control of Repeater, they're so strong. Once they get that control, they really are able to lock it down. And the thing for Robocore that was kind of, going into their favor in that first exchange, not this most recent one, was the fact that Control Repeater, they didn't have the most amount of time to set up here. That's something that you want to punish. They're very setup heavy. Actually, now that yeah, they're very setup heavy, right? That's something that you want to try to sink in on. But I think Robocore just was a little bit too slow to get the jump on that.
I mean, I'll say they did push in immediately. Like, you saw them spawn, you saw them sprint straight in. They did great damage off the bat, almost got the wipe. We're working on the steal, but it just couldn't come through. They didn't have enough time. Their wipe came in at an unfortunate time. I think if they had had a few extra seconds, it might have gone better. But unfortunately for them, they just kind of got shut down. And it looks like they're going to be able to go in and plug the next box, however. Giving them time to hopefully set up, kind of get ready, get on height, set up any util that they have, right? I know they like to set up those barriers with the healing orb and kind of sit behind it. That's great for them. I will say I would have hoped that Mojang would have, kind of run ahead, gotten up on position, gotten on height to really use that LH1 to its full potential, right?
Yeah.
It does tend to get in a little bit closer than you would want.
Oh, and yeah, Mojang is really far up right now with how much damage you scared of what has taken. It's going to be very hard to try to recover Mojang from the position that they are currently in. Does pop that invisibility. Now is behind him. Does get shot out and immediately revealed. So now that entire element of surprise is gone. But Wolf and Amazing Astro are not looking very good as far as health goes. The chip damage ends up being a bit too much. And that allows for Robocore to reestablish control of the cash out or the cash box, and now they are the ones with that vault or cash out began. They have the initial control, and it's going to be up to Control Repeater to be able to muster up the initiative to try to take this back. But that's going to be easier said than done. And Amazing Astro is taking a good amount of damage. Mojang is going to go out again alone. There was an opportunity to get the drop on them away from the objective. And now they're going for that steal. They're going to have to long arm it to try to stop it. Falcon Lover goes down. And same with Amazing Astro. Robocore with this vertical, taking it to great effect, leaving it up to Wolf to try to save the day here and recover from this attempt on an attack that has not gone very well. Gets significant damage onto Chaos Juju, who's now down to less than half, but you scared of what? Fully recovered. All it takes is one hook, and it's all over. And with that revive too, everyone from Robocore is currently up. So there's no real opportunity for Wolf to take advantage here. Gonna have to wait for both teammates to coin. That's one less coin available to them.
Now, I will note, we did say revive just there, but it does look like Mojang did actually expend a coin, putting him down to only one left. And as he's separated right now, this could be a dangerous time. If he gets separated from his team, loses the fight, and they have to go out for a res, this could be really bad for them. They do have a lot of util, and this is another thing I'll mention, is that I feel like you see a lot more mines in the low level play that you don't quite see playing at a Ruby Diamond level, or even on the competitive level of like TGM plays. Don't get me wrong, they are still used. Something that I like about this game is that there's not really a wrong loadout, right? You can make something work. There are just some that are definitely better than others in certain situations. We see a desperate steal attempt go here. I wouldn't have even bothered sticking that because there was clearly not enough time left there. Get the fight, try not to wipe. And, amazingly, Amazing Astro, see what I did there, manages to come in there, clean that up, and surprisingly get that wipe that I thought was not going to happen.
They do manage to pull it off. It just wasn't in combination with getting a steal. So they are going to have that head start in trying to go for that vault. But otherwise, actually, thanks to the spawn, it's going to be close out. They're going to be all very close to each other. Orange has already been spotted, so there's really nothing to hide here. They know of each other's presence as they get into this fight. But here's the thing. Will Mojang be able to get a good setup here? They do huge damage onto the medium, but can't secure the kill. That's a big blow. Now they can get the heal for Wolf and Falcon Lover. That one kill really could have set the stage there, right? No healer versus healer could have made one fight way more sustainable, but instead, it's both of the lights going down. And now it's going to be Mojang, who only has one coin remaining, especially now with Wolf, who gets revived. It's going to force a concession somewhere, either the last coin used or having to go back to get that revive, which is kind of hard to do.
And it does look like he used his coin there.
Yeah, they used the last coin. That's going to be rough. If Mojang goes down again, that means they literally cannot get their initiator back without going out of their way to revive. That's a lot of control that has been lost, especially if Mojang goes down near sight. This is going to be a tricky situation to navigate, especially now that Mojang has gone down. Control of Repeater has every incentive on Earth to guard that statue, which I'm sure they are setting up to do, but not before Wolf themselves goes out. We see You Scared of What and Chaos Juju still holding out quite well over the vault, but they've got that vertical position, the revive back in, and it's gonna be pretty much a never-ending 2v3. With the amount of damage they're taking, Control Alt Repeater, there might be a chance to wipe this one out entirely. Wolf is down, Astro's down. It's now a 1v1, but there's the winch. Chaos Juju wanted to back off, but wasn't able to cleanly get that opportunity. The damage very close, and it's actually going to be Core who will be able to win that out. Gets the revive too. Very close exchange and matchup. But either way, guess what they can't do? They can't really reset. Medium's gonna have to book it, and the Heavy's gonna have to go for the revive here. That's kind of what happens when you continue to, run out and fight this on your own. Don't get me wrong, Control Alt Repeater, they were very sloppy in their positioning and took way too much damage to try to contest that vault. But at the end of the day, it's much more forgiving for them when it comes to, these fights, because they have a 1 in 3 chance that the player they take out, they don't gotta worry about them anymore for the rest of the team fight. That's a huge comfort to deal with.
Yeah, and I mean, lacking the coins there, especially when you're on this last highly pivotal cash box, that will honestly decide the fate of this tournament. This is the last round, the last cash box. It's gone to the very end. Two very even teams here. We gotta play every advantage we've got, and when you can just get picked off and force your team to come back to you, Pink now knows, like, either it's going to be a 3v2 or we're going to find them on the light, right? Orange does get rid of it. It looks like Chaos is going to push to get a revive, but this is just slowing them down, right? Pink's going to be able to get the plug while Orange has to rotate back. Pink will go ahead and grab that cash box and work their way towards B, it would seem. And they've got time, though. I will say, for Orange to get rid of it like they did, get the res up, I think that's the best way you can play this, right? They spread it out. But with that movement, that dash, I mean, it does really shorten that distance drastically, allowing them to get that plug with ease.
Well, and the problem, too, is now it's going to be even tougher for Core to try to disrupt it because, if Mojang goes down, Control Repeater can literally weaponize the biggest strength that Core has available, which is, taking that fight and jumping them because they're going to have to res. They're not going to be able to, walk it back. So if you know where that statue is, you can just go for it. I really cannot stress enough how important that is. That these players are a bit more closer together. But Chaos, though, will end up going out. Does get caught by that explosive, which was a great throw coming in from Wolf. Both of them are kind of funneled towards this doorway. But we will see Mojang coming in at a great flank, able to put out significant damage. Also has that additional line of sight on the Heavy. Falcon Lover now completely boxed in, taking significant damage. All players up except for Chaos Juju, but there's a golden opportunity here to steal or to get some major damage out. They do attempt to steal. It doesn't work out. It gets dropped to the lower level. This is that verticality that Control Alt Repeater has been doing so well this entire tournament. Gets the hook. Massive damage. Astro down, but You Scared of What and Chaos Juju are incredibly low. The deployable shield and that dome shield both up to recover. The heal going through. It's going to pull him both back up to full. This is going to be a full recovery, especially with that revive. The fire goes out, but that stall utility is running out thanks to the consistent pressure that Robocore is putting out, and they are able to just arm it enough. Oh, they don't get it to drop. Now finally getting it, but they have extended quite a bit to get that to happen, and now there's no more drop. They have to come in to stop this. Robocore is about to get the steal. They do successfully overtake it with such little time. Someone's got to go in. That's tough to do. As Falcon Lover's low, goes down. Wolf is also low. Amazing Astro, the last one with full health, to be able to go in and stop this. If you get major damage, but it's going to be too much as they drop it themselves, and it's going to be Robocore who wins this tourney.
Yeah, huge GGs to Robocore. I mean, Robocore. Going into this, like I said, there, control repeater. When they have it, it's hard to steal. But if Robocore can get in there and get that steal, they tend to be better at getting the wipe. You know, playing for, you know, playing stalling it out, right? They come in, they steal it. They don't have great util. They're really good at finding the players. If they go down, resetting in fullness, and then not only that, but like they'll single out a player. I saw multiple times where like Mojang was invis, and you see control repeater running along, and the light would be there, and the heavy would be there, and the medium would be there, and you'd wait until he could see the medium to pick the medium off. Why would he do that? Heals, right? Defibrillator. If we can get these team fights to go the way we want them, we just we win the game, right? We did get close there at the end, admittedly. I think that shooting that fire mine wasn't the right move there. Kind of having it there as an option to stall more later instead of trying to just keep them generally away. I don't think that was the right move there. And so I think that ultimately could have helped, and I don't think it cost them the game. Obviously, because I think Roroka just came in there at the end with great plays, got good kills, great positioning, really made them use their stalls early so that they still had enough time to steal at the end. Uh, and just really cleaned this up nicely. And again, huge shout out to Rower Corp, but it was so close, right? Control Alt repeater there. It always went to the third cash box, and it went to the third round. So
Mhm.
huge shout out to both teams. Great games overall. And yeah, what do you think about this?
I think both teams absolutely played to their strengths. Like I was saying before, I don't think there was really any big, weaknesses that could be played off of. Because the one thing that I noticed was, once Mojang had the last coin to use, started playing way closer to or together. Obviously, that was a weakness, but it wasn't one that ended up actually being exploitable. They mitigated that, which is great. But also, too, the one thing I really see that stood out was Rovocore correctly identifying with how much stall that there was. The only way they were going to get that is if they burnt through everything. They had to get in there and break all those mines, all those explosives. There was a lot there. I mean, how many steal attempts was there? I think it was like
Three,
three or
four. Yeah.
four before they could finally actually get it. And with how extended out and far away from the fight that control alt repeater was, I mean, that enabled them to steal because usually, right, rover core isn't there early enough and with enough veracity and proximity to the cash out for their stall to run out. But this time it did. It was enough sustained pressure because that's what rover core really needed was sustainment, and they finally were able to pull that off in order to drain all of that utility and force control alt repeater who was not well positioned enough in order to contest that. But why when you have that much utility, why would you be up and close and constantly fighting? You want to be able to utilize every piece of stall that you have, but at the very end, Rower Core took that initiative and the timing was just right that no amount of stall in the world was going to stop that. Eventually, you're going to have to get in there and fight. And control repeater, they had it good, with their stall, and this time it wasn't enough. You can only do that for so long until eventually you got to start throwing hands, and that
Yeah.
that came too late, especially with the floor that they were at, where you got a massive half wall that's covering you from only 2 choke points. That's easy to isolate with,
Yeah.
proper support, which Rovercore did provide that for their teammates stealing. So, I mean, very well deserved win. I don't think there was really a major flaw from either of these two teams. I think they both played their heart out incredibly well. It was just that Rovercore was able to better aggress with more time to spare and keep their numbers up to prevent overexertion, overextension into getting wiped out.
Yeah. But I will say, production, if we can actually get the scoreboard one more time really quickly. Um, yeah, looking at, we said neither team really had like a huge flaw, that they played super terribly in any way. I do think we also had a clear MVP there. And I think Chaos Juju coming in with 11 kills, 5 assists, and only 6 deaths with a massive support score. Not quite at the same level as Astro, but great support score, great kills. You saw him clutch up a few times there. He was up against the heavy. They were both down to about 1 HP. I will say it was unfortunate. The heavy actually just ran out of ammo right there at the end, and he was able to get his reload faster as the medium. But there were several times that it came down to like a 1v1 at the end there, and Chaos really just clutched it up for his team.
Hmm. No, absolutely, and I would agree with that MVP nomination. I believe there was also a point when Mojang was down and was not in a revsable position. You scared of what? And Chaos literally had to fight it out against all three of Control Alt Repeater with a vertical advantage and with minimal cover. And Chaos Juju was still able to keep You Scared of What alive despite initially being very low HP and able to win that fight and clutch that 1v1 against Falcon Lover. I mean, that is just one of the many examples of where we saw why Chaos Juju was the MVP for this best of three.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks like we're actually going to be able to discuss the match with some of these players. First up, I believe we're getting some players from, is it RoboCorp? Yeah. So we're going to get some of the winning team in here. So welcome.
Hello.
How's it going? Great match.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so actually I do have kind of a few questions for, especially those final moments. I want to kind of get your thoughts on that. It One of the things that I noticed from you guys in that final cash out is you guys really started to, keep on the pressure despite all of that stall. Was that something that you guys had considered, was the amount of stall utility that Control Alt Repeater had towards the objective and continuing to, put on the pressure, the steal attempts to try to burn all of that off? Was that a deliberate play? What was kind of your mindset in dealing with that situation?
Yeah, we try to to always throw grenade, always breaker defense.
Yeah, no, I mean it was a really tough situation. You guys did a wonderful job with all of that sustained pressure. One thing I also kind of wanted to, you know, kind of look into was also uh I believe it was actually your winner bracket final, right? That was incredibly close, and you guys barely, cinched it out into the second place position. What was kind of going through your minds with how close that was? What was your objective, you know, in securing your second place position there? Was it, going for eliminations, or what were you kind of thinking there? Me and Lone Ranger were kind of talking about how many different options there were for how close the timing was. What did you choose to go for that secured you that second place position?
Yeah, that was a clean game at the end. They were all the team, so yeah, I think it's a little bit of luck because of that. But we tried to keep the position, to reposition, to But yeah, at the end of the game, we we said it. That's what that was a clean.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Did you
amazing.
think you were
And
gonna make this far? Oh, go ahead.
no, you're good. That's a great question.
I was gonna say, did you guys really think you were gonna make it this far? What were your expectations going into this matchup?
No, we at the start we think we gonna lose, but the the final the bracket of the cash out final was pretty easy. So we go to grand final.
Yeah. Well, amazing. And thank you so much. Great game. And congratulations on the victory.
Thanks you. Can I say something in French?
Go
Yes.
ahead.
Eh les gars, vive la française!
I heard that. Yeah, Viva la France. Outstanding. Well, congratulations, guys, to your
Thank you.
win, and wish you the best of luck when or for whatever next matchups you guys partake in next. Hope to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I think we can possibly check in with the other team as well, our second placers with Control Alt Repeater. Maybe we can get a little bit of insights into that for them as well if we can get them in.
Waiting on confirmation from production on that. But let me just say, I predicted it. It happened. My caster's curse is turning around. I think maybe I was
2 and
hanging
1.
out with Cody a little bit too much right before this game. So that's why it kind of rubbed off early on, but kind of got that out of my
Right.
system early on.
Yeah.
um,
Hey,
shout
2 in a
out,
row. You can't go wrong with that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, production, do we have another interview? I gotcha. I gotcha. So we will have the interview. Sweet.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I
Now,
mean, I
piercing. Oh, sorry. Go
what's
ahead.
up? No, I was
Oh,
gonna
I was
say, I
just gonna
mean, they
say,
it was really close.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
very close there at the end.
Oh,
All
I didn't
right.
realize you being interviewed. Hello.
hello, hello,
Amazing
hello.
Astro, hello.
How are
So
you?
close there at the end. I'm doing great. How
Oh
are you?
yeah, it was so close. It was so close. Yeah, it was a really fun match though. I'm glad that I went to
Yeah.
free matches, and I'm glad that was like kind of going back and forth. It was really fun.
Yeah, all three matches and all three cash boxes for all three matches. Um, right there at the end, we were talking about this whole time about how y'all really had a great way of stalling the cash out, and when you had the
Yeah,
cash out, it was so hard to take it. There at the end, what we saw them kind of change up there, and what really seemed to make the difference is that they really just kind of hammered in on it. They just kept going for it and really bled out your stall. And then
yeah.
y'all were a little bit too far back there. What do you think maybe you could have done differently or better to kind of change that up? Or do you think you really kind of played it to the best of your abilities and just kind of lost there at the end and it was close and, GG's to everyone around?
Well, it's a mix of both. Looking back at it now, because I was actually just reviewing like my POV because I was recording it.
Okay.
Some things that we noticed is that we kind of all sometimes we're in our own separate way. Like the light would be fine the light, I'd be fine the heavy would be fine the medium. I think something we need to do was focus on one individual. I look back at this one moment where the heavy was alive and the heavy winched me. I should have told my heavy to go help me because if we killed that heavy, it would have just been the medium. And that would have made it so much more easier.
Hmm.
And I think we just had to be aware of more sightlines. Be aware that they could be below us, that they may like reroute that type of stuff. I feel like if we were more of a team and less so individual, we definitely would have been in a situation where we could just pick off everyone one by one because our light got the light first. I think our light, yeah, killed the light at the start of the fight when we just cashed out the final box. And then, I think if we just focused on the medium and then we got the heavy, we could have team wiped them twice and we could have gotten that box.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, coming second place, still highly impressive. Uh, Coming into this, where did you think you were kind of gonna kind of make it to, right? Did you have high expectations? Were you just kind of like, oh, this is for fun, I'll just go in and we might lose in the first round, or kind of a mix of both? Were you pretty excited to like make it as far? Or did you have expectations?
I think our team had expectations of at least our goal was to make it to first or second place because one
Okay.
that's kind of like that's the top two. And even though we only played like 3 times before, we barely played any games together.
Okay.
But I think we knew the expectation of there are some good teams here we could lose. And I will say, I think we were all most stressed out at the first match, like the first match between the 1v1 at the very start, because we didn't know if that team would be really good or not.
Mm,
Um, I guess what I just want to say is that I think we were confident we would make it to top three or the final round at least. And I'm glad that we did, but we also kind of kept our heads on the swivel and understood that there is a chance that we might get beat by another team because we just haven't played these teams before.
yeah. And I mean, leading nicely into my next question, you kind of mentioned that you've only played with this group of people a few times. Um, h- are y'all a team? Are y'all a group of friends that just decided to enter together? Did you find each other in like a LFG type of deal? Like, how did this team come to be, and do you foresee yourself playing with this team in the future?
Well, one, I'll just immediately say it. I love this team so much. I've been in-game leader for most of the teams, and I find it really, really fun. I definitely want to play with this team more. And we just found each other with looking for a group. I'm pretty sure it was our light Wooful that put like a thing that's like I'm looking for a team for little leagues, and I'm like I want to join because I was NA too. And eventually he was
Nice.
able
Yeah.
to find a heavy, and they already had a coach prepared. And we played for a couple times. We played scrims mostly
Okay.
with other teams. That was like the only 3 times we played. We never played like cash out, like 4 team cash out. Excuse me.
Gotcha.
So we were kind of stressed about playing that because like we don't know how we're gonna play together if there's a third party. Unfortunately, we didn't have any third parties, so that was pretty good.
Nice. Yeah.
But we just found each other like a week or a week and a half ago, and then we just played like 3 times, and then this.
Well, that's so great. Well, amazing job again, and best of luck on any future endeavors that you or your team attempt to do. And thanks so much for playing, and have a great day.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
All
All
right,
right.
Piercing, send us off.
Well, I think that's going to be it for us tonight. Tomorrow we have the big league, so we are far from over for this weekend. But as far as me and Lone Ranger are concerned, that's it for us. So thank you for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I'm going to be still incredibly busy as usual. But until next time, take it easy, and we'll see you around.